Chapter 1296. Lin Yuan was rather unfamiliar with the items that Princess had handed over. However, he knew that these two pale gold crystals were truly good stuff. They were world crystals that could allow Fays above the 5 tribulations of creation to absorb and achieve a breakthrough in quality. Lin Yuan watched as Princess handed him the 2 world crystals and eagerly waited to be fed. Lin Yuan could not help but laugh as he handed the world crystal of the prismatic tortoise to Princess. Princess, you'll absorb this world crystal of the prismatic tortoise's body next. After absorbing this world crystal, I'll let you absorb the world crystal of the roaring sun world. After you're done absorbing the world crystal of the shadow binding world, you can absorb the world crystal of the holy healing white deer. Princess did not raise any objections and happily took the world crystal of the holy healing white deer. Princess was not picky when it came to good stuff like the world crystal. No matter which one she ate first, she would eat all the world crystals in the end. Lin Yuan was really good to her. Lin Yuan had already used Morbius True Data to check on Princess attributes. Sacred source name: Sacred sword-wielding princess, sacred source species, source species/sacred source species, sacred source star. 3 stars, sacred source type. Main water/miscellaneous support functions frowny face princess form. 1 princess skirt. Can extract the willpower rune of a dead fae or source type item. It can also inscribe the willpower of the dead fantasy breed fae's willpower rune or the myth breed law crystal's laws onto princess skirt. At the same time, the law crystal that has its laws extracted will become a law crystal containing pure power of law. Sacred sword form: 1 sacred sword's blade. The blade pierces the skirt and consumes the body's spirit chi to strike out the same type of law and willpower stored in the skirt. Sword skill: Dark Death World Dark Crow Withering Strike. Inject all the power in the Dark Death World into the sacred sword. The sacred sword's blade will split into 28 night crows with the power of dark death. The contractor will swing the sacred sword to strike out 28 night crows for 28 attacks. If the 28 attacks form a combo, each combo will trigger an additional layer of withering effect. Every 14 stacks of withering would cause a withering attack on the target. 28 perfect combos would cause 56 withering effects to cause the target to enter a true withering state. Sword skill: Vast Water World Whale Sea Leap Wave Strike. Inject all the power of the vast water world into the holy sword. The holy sword gains the power to control water. Depending on the current environment and the size of the water body, the sword skill will be weakened or strengthened. The contestant can summon a huge whale in the water body when waving the holy sword. The whale will jump out of the water and launch a fierce attack. During the attack, the owner of the holy sword can decide to summon the state of the whale, allowing the whale and the huge wave raised by the whale to freely switch between water and ice. With one look, Lin Yuan discovered that Princess had indeed become a 3-star sacred source life form, just as he had expected. At the same time, after absorbing the vast water world crystal, the queen who had mastered the vast water world changed from the sacred source elements to the main dark element and the supplementary element. It became a main water element and a mix of auxiliary elements. That's right. Princess's sacred source system had focused on the dark element because the dark element world within her body had the most laws and wills. However, there were 2 creation earth veins in the vast water world crystal. There was 1 more creation earth vein than the dark death world. There was still a myth 3 dead dream law in Princess's robe. However, even if the myth 3 dead dream law and the dark death world with 1 creation earth vein were added together, they could not compare to the vast water world with 2 creation earth veins. Compared to Princess's sacred source system, what attracted Lin Yuan's attention the most was the new sword skill that Princess had obtained in her sacred sword mode, the Whale Sea Leaping Wave Strike. After carefully reading the introduction of the Whale Sea Leaping Wave Strike, Lin Yuan found that it was a sword skill that had extremely high requirements for the environment. In situations where there were no water bodies or small water bodies, using the Whale Sea Leaping Wave Strike would greatly reduce the damage of the Whale Sea Leaping Wave Strike. This was because the Whale Sea Leaping Wave Strike's strength was directly related to the size of the water body. But what if the Whale Sea Leaping Wave Strike was used on the sea? It had to be known that the sea regions were connected. As long as there were no especially large continents or islands in the sea region, it meant that the sea region could be extended infinitely. If the whale sea leaping wave strike was used on the sea, the sword skill's lethality would be raised to a terrifying value that was difficult to estimate. When the whale sea leaping wave strike was used, it would summon a giant whale in the water body. Moreover, the sacred sword could allow the giant whale and the giant waves it raised to freely switch between water and ice. Lin Yuan felt that apart from being used for attack, the whale sea leaping wave strike could also be used as a control and defensive sword skill. When the giant wave raised by the giant whale attacked the target, it could turn the giant wave raised by the giant whale into ice. It could trap the target wrapped in the wave in ice. When facing a powerful attack, it could even turn the entire giant whale into ice and be used as a shield to block the attack. Although the whale sea leaping wave strike had extremely high requirements for the environment, it was superior in that it combined offense, defense, and defense. Overall, Lin Yuan was rather satisfied with the new whale sea leaping wave strike. As he looked at Princess, who had already started to absorb the world crystal simulation, Lin Yuan could not help but twitch the corners of his mouth. Only God knew how much resources and effort he had invested to nurture Princess. But even though he had invested so much, the princess's current star level had only reached 3 stars. It hasn't passed the infancy stage yet. He really didn't know how long it would take for the princess to advance to a 4-star, from the infancy stage to the growth stage. This allowed her to obtain new abilities in both her princess and holy sword state. Suddenly, he thought of the 3 world crystals in his hands and the tens of thousands of law origin crystals that the princess had yet to absorb. Lin Yuan immediately regained his confidence. Anyway, with his current resources and ability to obtain resources, it was only a matter of time before he could raise the princess's star to 4 stars. Lin Yuan, who had just left the Spirit Lock spatial zone, had yet to drink a mouthful of water when he heard a knock on the door. Lin Yuan hurriedly opened the door and saw Lu Jie standing there with an abnormally grim expression. Upon seeing Lin Yuan, Lu Jie hurriedly spoke. Lin Yuan, according to the Hurricane Owlet Moth's detection, a Fey carriage is heading toward the island. Looking at the shape of this Fey carriage, it must be Anha, who Qi Heng mentioned before. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan replied immediately. Big brother Lu, let's go call the slaughtering butterfly and the mother of bloodbath first. Since the person competing with us for the large whale fall is here, it's time for us to set off. ABC. Chapter 1297. And he was yawning and stepping out of the Fey carriage with an unhappy expression. Anha, who had just stepped out of the Fey carriage, glanced at the glaring sun over the island, and his sleepy eyes suddenly became sharp. With a wave of his hand, a lavender worm was summoned by Anha. And he looked at the 2 moths that flashed over the island and said, Earth overturning hibernating insect, find everything that shouldn't be on this island. Upon hearing Anhi's command, the light purple worm wriggled from his palm and landed on the ground. Upon hearing Anhi's command, the light purple worm wriggled from his palm and landed on the ground. Then, the entire island began to tremble. Dozens of meandering stone pillars emerged from the ground, and the front of these stone pillars had mouthparts that looked like the light purple worm. The meandering stone pillars found and killed a total of 27 hurricane owlet moths in less than a moment. Then the stone pillars' mouthparts picked up the black-winged owlet moths' corpses and transported them to Anhi's feet. Lu Jie, who had followed Lin Yuan to call the mother of bloodbath and the slaughter sky butterfly, clearly saw this scene on the island. Lu Jie's eyes narrowed slightly, and a strong fighting spirit ignited in his heart. When Lu Jie had created the black-winged owlet moths, he had not intended for them to fight at all. The black-winged owlet moths, which had been entrusted with the mission of scouting, had condensed all their energy on their wings, causing these black-winged owlet moths' wings to be 1 size larger than the ones that Lu Jie usually created. These hurricane owlet moths had no attack power or defense at all. In addition, Lu Jie was commanding the hurricane owlet moths from 800 nautical miles away, so the effect was very limited. It could be said that 800 nautical miles was the limit of Lu Jie's scouting range with the hurricane owlet moths. Based on the speed of the wriggling stone pillar, The purple worm's strength was at least at the Diamond X/Fantasy V level. The situation on the island was completely out of Lu Jie's perception. Lu Jie immediately told him about the last scene he had detected. As early as a day ago, Red Thorn had controlled Lu Yenshan to find Bai Yen. Bai Yen was on standby at the Klein hub in the swamp world. When Lin Yuan needed Bai Yen, he only needed to let Purple Firmament inform Bai Yen to summon him immediately. Since it was confirmed that it was His Holiness Eternal Lantern's disciple, and he boarded the distant island. A fierce battle was inevitable. However, he wasn't in a hurry to head to the island. A large whale fall would be guarded by the sea race powerhouses. Since he was the first to arrive, he was bound to clash with the sea race powerhouses. The oceanic species experts and he were both touchstones. They could help Lin Yuan test how strong the oceanic species experts guarding this large-scale whale fall were. It could also help Lin Yuan test the strength of the expert behind he. After detecting both sides' trump cards, Lin Yuan could deal with them with ease. While everyone was riding the Slaughter Sky Butterfly to the island, Lu Jie said softly to Lin Yuan, "Lin Yuan, I might not be able to help much in the battle later. But I can help clean up the sea environment." 2 days ago, Lu Jie had an in-depth conversation with Lin Yuan about this large-scale whale fall. Lu Jie's original intention was to use these 2 days to summon the left minister, Zhuo Ming. He had Zhuo Ming hide in the dark to deal with unpredictable dangers. In the end, Lin Yuan was already prepared, so Lu Jie gave up on the idea of calling the left palm official Zhuo Ming. That's right, the left minister Zhuo Ming was Night Leaning Moon's right hand. On a certain level, it could represent Night Leaning Moon's will. As soon as Zhuo Ming appeared, the experts under the lamp would definitely be able to see through his identity. Zhuo Ming's appearance would change the nature of the fight for resources. It would turn into an open battle between the two forces. If His Majesty's forces clashed with each other, it would likely lead to a series of butterfly effects. This was not a good thing. However, even if Lin Yuan was prepared in advance, Lu Jie still wanted to do something within his power as Lin Yuan's retainer knight. Upon hearing Lu Jie's words, Lin Yuan's eyes lit up, and he hurriedly replied, "That's right. Brother Lu, it's great that you can clean up the sea. If I can try to drive the weak aquatic phase in the sea far away and get them away from the range of the large whale fall," Lin Yuan was really afraid that if he executed the whale sea leaping wave strike, those weak life forms would be instantly torn into pieces by the energy erupting from the sea. Upon hearing this, Lu Jie raised his hand and snapped his fingers. The dimensional light moth with the insect queen in its belly immediately appeared beside Lu Jie. Lu Jie circulated his spiritual power, and the spiritual power in his body surged violently. The insect queen produced a large number of hurricane owlet moths in the dimensional light moth's belly. Lu Jie then asked the insect queen to summon 2 insect-type carcinoma phase that Lu Jie had never used before. One of the insect-type carcinoma phase was like a small light bulb, and its insect limbs were soft and slender. The large insect belly was filled with a milky white turbid liquid. The other insect-type carcinoma phase was like a grayish-brown rock and was very inconspicuous. However, this insect-type carcinoma phase had 2 giant chelicerae at its front and a pair of thick insect tails at its back. The chelicerae and insect tails had sharp mouthparts, and it looked like a glutton. After Lu Jie summoned these 2 insect-type carcinoma phase, he took out a few protein silkworm chrysalises and tossed them at them. Subsequently, these 2 insect-type carcinoma phase rapidly produced a large number of insect eggs in front of Lin Yuan. The dimensional light moth released all the hurricane owlet moths that the insect queen had produced. The dimensional light moth was like an aircraft carrier, and the hurricane owlet moths that Lu Jie had sent out were all transport planes. They were assigned by Lu Jie to transport the eggs produced by the 2 insect-type carcinoma phase. Afterward, the 2 insect-type carcinoma phase eggs were scattered into the sea, and the efficiency was maximized. The instant Lin Yuan saw these 2 insect-type carcinoma phase, he didn't even use true data to recognize them. Lin Yuan didn't expect Lu Jie to actually control these 2 terrifying existences. The milky white light bulb insect-type carcinoma phase was called the floating hatworm, and it was a life form that had an extremely strong control over water bodies. The floating hatworm's eggs would be scattered into the sea by the hurricane owlet moths. These eggs would quickly hatch on the surface of the sea and turn into small floating hatworms. The small floating hatworms would absorb the environment's energy and rapidly proliferate. When several small floating hatworms were placed side by side after proliferating, they would form an assembly that was close to 100 square meters in the sea. It looked like a dense jellyfish colony. However, as an insect-type carcinoma Phae, the floating hatworm wasn't as simple as a jellyfish. When the floating hatworm was in the water, its soft and slender insect limbs would constantly extend and become very tough. App. Not bad at all. It's worth installing. It actually supports both Android and Apple phones. As long as there was water, these tough insect limbs would rapidly expand and grow. 166 Reading Network. Chapter 1298. At the same time, these tough insect limbs would secrete a jelly-like substance that was extremely difficult to break free from. This jelly-like substance was like a fishnet without any holes, and it was enough to catch all the creatures in the sea in one go. With the dark floating hatworm around, as long as those colonies floated on the sea surface with the sea breeze, all the creatures in the sea that were weaker than the dark floating hatworm would be stuck by the mucus secreted by the tentacles. The sea would be cleared in an instant. The mucus secreted by the dark floating hatworm was actually its food warehouse. In order to ensure the freshness of the food, the mucus would provide enough nutrients to maintain the basic life of the creatures caught in the net. Using this method, Lu Jie could bring away all the creatures in the sea that were weaker than the dark floating hatworm. After this storm was over, Lu Jie only needed to control the dark floating hatworm's queen to activate the destruction mechanism of the eggs. The dark floating hatworm colonies that were produced in the sea would rapidly degrade into nutrients, and the mucus secreted would also lose its stickiness. Perhaps these aquatic Phaes that were brought to a safe place by the dark floating hatworm could obtain a chance encounter. The other tumor Phae that looked like a brown rock was called the reef lice. The density of the reef lice's eggs was very high, so their eggs would hatch about 50 meters below the water's surface. After the eggs hatched, the small reef lice would rapidly change the pressure in its body and sink to the bottom of the sea. When the reef lice reached the bottom of the sea, it would rapidly eat the rocks at the bottom of the sea. At the same time, it would secrete an extremely hard calcified substance. When these calcified substances were piled up, they would form all kinds of steep and majestic stone peaks in the water. The reef lice had once appeared in the distant sea area of Wind Mist City. It was rumored that the reef lice had been taken in by the spirit guards. At that time, the reef lice had almost curbed Wind Mist City's economic development. The substance secreted by the reef lice had once formed stone peaks that were level with the sea surface and even protruded out of the sea surface. It had almost turned Wind Mist City from a coastal city into an inland city. The reef lice was good at reclaiming land from the sea, but the stone peaks that the reef lice secreted were definitely not something that Wind Mist City wanted to see. Wind Mist City's economy had originally ranked in the top 20 among the 36 major cities. Due to the reef lice's rampage, Wind Mist City's economy had suddenly fallen to the bottom within a year. As a result, the Gao family's ranking among the top forces plummeted. After 5 to 6 years of development, Wind Mist City's economy started to recover slowly. It was no longer a bottom-feeder existence by relying on the resources of the sea region. However, after that incident, Wind Mist City never made it into the top 20 of the big cities. It would not be an exaggeration to say that they were the nightmare of Wind Mist City. Perhaps the reef-striking lice that the insect queen was controlling was the one that had appeared in the distant sea of Wind Mist City. Lu Jie had absolute control over the queen louse. Since the mother louse could make its larvae secrete calcium, it could also make its larvae eat the calcium. Therefore, Lu Jie's current actions would not have any impact on Stormy Waves City's distant sea resources. At the same time, the reef lice's stone peak could maximize the safety of the underwater phase. The floating hatworm and the reef-hitting lice blocked the sea from the surface to the bottom of the sea, while the reef-hitting lice blocked the bottom of the sea. If these two insect-type carcinoma phase were to wreak havoc together, no coastal city would be able to resist them. Back then, the reef-striking lice that had wreaked havoc outside Wind Mist City was only at silver, while the insect queen's reef-striking lice was already at Diamond X. The reef-striking lice outside Wind Mist City could not be compared to the current one in terms of prowess. As he watched Lu Jie commanding the insect swarm, Lin Yuan felt that Lu Jie was becoming more and more like a natural disaster. However, Lu Jie's current actions also proved that everything had two sides. The insect-type carcinoma phase that had always been a disaster in the sea region, the nether floating hatworm and the reef lice were doing their best to protect the stability of the sea region. Perhaps, Night Leaning Moon's original intention of letting Lu Jie contract the carcinoma phase was to let Lu Jie use his calamity body to defend the sea region and do good deeds. On the other side, Anha was fiddling with the hurricane owlet moth's corpse with great interest. Zhang Cheng, Sun Jiang, and the elder had also alighted from the carriage. Zhang Cheng had a dumbfounded expression. He had trained his vocal cords for over an hour, and his voice was already in its most gentle state. But why was it that after waking he glared at him to the point that he began to doubt his life? When the elder saw Zhang Cheng's dumbfounded expression, he silently expressed his apology. He then bent over to pick up a hurricane owlet moth and looked at it before asking Sun Jiang, who was beside him, "Is there a creation master among the 5 Thearch's mercenaries stationed on the island? Ask him to come over and see what exactly this insect-type fey is." Hearing this, Sun Jiang revealed an awkward expression. "Our 5 Thearch's mercenaries only have a total of 2 Class 4 creation masters, and they have been left at the headquarters." A Class 4 creation master was a precious treasure to the 5 Thearch's mercenary alliance. The 5 Thearch's mercenaries had not been established for a long time, and they were able to have a good ranking among the top factions because of their martial strength. This was also the main reason why the 5 Thearch's mercenaries had chosen to have a good relationship with the coiling Dragon Valley. All of a sudden, Sun Jiang's eyes flickered. Since this was the place where the Sea of Bliss nurtured Fays, there must be a creation master stationed here. Zhang Jiang was prepared to look for one. Before Zhang Jiang could look for one, Anha raised his hand and stopped him. Anha wasn't a creation master and couldn't see the hurricane owlet moths on the ground. However, and he was not very interested in what exactly these 20 moths were. In short, these 27 moths shouldn't have appeared on the island. For them to appear on the island, it was most likely that someone had been monitoring the island before they had arrived. Since someone wanted to monitor the island, there must be a purpose. Since they were here, if the person monitoring the island was also a large whale fall, he would have to show up to meet them. Anha lowered his head and ordered the light purple hinterland hibernating worm at his feet. Hinterland hibernating worm, start to absorb the energy in this island's soil and carry out the cocoon transformation. Under Anha's command, the hinterland hibernating worm's body suddenly stiffened. Subsequently, the hinterland hibernating worm was like a violently beating heart, causing the entire island to echo with rhythmic thumping sounds. Immediately after, the hinterland hibernating worm frantically danced its body and spat out light purple liquid. Once the light purple liquid was spat out, it immediately turned into a large clump of sticky worm silk. Logically speaking, a 3 to 5 centimeters hinterland hibernating worm's cocoon would only be the size of a fist. However, this hinterland hibernating worm's light purple cocoon was even bigger than the breeding room that the Sea of Bliss had built on the distant island. The 20-meter wide and 25-meter tall cocoon made Anha, who was below the cocoon, look rather small. Chapter 1299. After the giant cocoon was formed, the heartbeat in the center of the cocoon sounded again. This time, along with the heartbeat, the land near the cocoon began to tremble rhythmically. It was hard to imagine what kind of creature would hatch out of the cocoon. Looking at the cocoon in front of him, and he attached his hand to the cocoon and gently stroked it twice. Then, he said to the old man behind him, "Grandpa Gu, there's no time to lose. Grandpa Gu, there's no time to lose. Help me call out the strongest sea race powerhouse who's guarding this whale fall." Just as the old man behind and he was about to nod, his eyes suddenly narrowed, and he looked toward the distant sea. At that moment, a huge whirlpool had suddenly appeared in the sea. As the whirlpool rotated, the color of the entire sea changed from a bright light blue to a gloomy dark blue. A clear and gentle voice came from the center of the whirlpool. This clear and gentle voice was filled with extreme rage. As expected, the humans are plotting for this massive whale fall. Do you humans really think that the sea creatures are easy to bully? After the gentle voice that was full of anger echoed, the entire dark blue sea was set off with fine waves. These fine waves piled up layer by layer and swept a large amount of seawater onto the island. The huge waves engulfed half of the island, and even the fishery built by the Blissful Sea clan was smashed into pieces by the huge waves. A large number of angelfish of Blissful took this opportunity to escape into the sea. The old man behind and he shouted in a solemn tone, "Deep sea color. I didn't expect the sea near my Radiance territory to be the fief of the Sea Empress 8 clans. May I know which clan among the Sea Empress 8 clans are you from? Please come out and meet me. Our young master, he has something to discuss with you." As soon as the old man's voice fell, a cold snort came from the whirlpool. What is this Empress identity? Is it something a mere human like you can meet? The large-scale whale fall is a gift from nature to the sea, and it belongs to all the creatures of the sea creatures. You humans shouldn't be thinking about it. Hurry up and leave. Otherwise, the deep sea will be your final destination. Upon hearing that, and he waved his hand without another word, and a giant beast that was bigger than the island appeared out of thin air in the sea. This giant beast was shaped like a bull. Its skin was covered in layers of scales, and its skin was grayish-blue. The towering beast was like a huge mountain rising from the bottom of the sea to the surface of the sea. After being summoned by Ankh, the giant beast let out a fierce roar. The gigantic beast's voice was like thunder. Following its roar, the entire sea returned to silence. All the seawater that had just crashed into the island along with the huge wave flowed back into the sea, leaving only the huge whirlpools spinning in the sea. Anha looked in the direction of the vortex and said coldly, "This young master doesn't think that the members of the Sea Empire's 8 clans, who are not valued, have anything to be proud of. If you were a member of the Sea Empress 8 clans that was the center of attention, your fief wouldn't have been distributed around the Radiance continent. Radiance and the Sea clan have signed the Radiance Sea Treaty. According to the Radiance Sea Treaty, the sea region within 1,000 kilometers of Radiance City belongs to the resources controlled by Radiance City. This large whale fall happened right below Stormy Wave City. According to the Huihai Treaty, the large whale fall right below the island belongs to the owner of the island. This young master wants to tell you that not everything in the sea belongs to the Sea clan. The things that belong to Radiance are in the sea, and you Sea clan people can't take them away." While Anha was speaking, a petite figure appeared in the whirlpool. This petite figure was wrapped in a silver-blue robe, and her silver-blue long hair flowed down to her feet. Above her bluish-purple eyes, there were 2 long horns that were almost as tall as her body. The strange thing was that the ends of the long horns weren't hard and sharp, but 2 silver-blue fins. There was a bright golden line in the middle of the fins. Behind this woman stood 2 middle-aged women, one fat and one thin, who looked no different from humans. However, these 2 middle-aged women clearly had the characteristics of aquatic fays. The thinner middle-aged woman had translucent hair, and her body was wrapped in a thick layer of water vapor. The other fat middle-aged woman had bright red scales on her cheeks, and a few sharp thorns protruded from her back. She had a fierce look on her face. However, be it the petite silver-blue long-haired woman standing above the whirlpool or the fat and thin middle-aged women, they all frowned and looked solemn. The fays that Anha had summoned in the sea had directly revealed his identity. The aura of a bloodline of Desolation Fae was very easy to identify, and only Her Holiness disciples, and Radiance envoys could obtain such fays. Moreover, there were certain restrictions for Her Holiness disciples to obtain them. Not every Her Holiness disciple could obtain a bloodline of Desolation Fae. Moreover, Radiance envoys mostly moved in groups, and it was rare for them to act alone in public. Therefore, it was almost certain that this youth with the bloodline of Desolation Fae was a disciple of one of the Radiance envoys. If that was the case, it would be troublesome. However, this large whale fall was of great importance. The silver-blue long-haired woman made a decision in her heart. No matter what, This large whale fall couldn't be taken away by this youth in front of her, even if this youth was a disciple of one of the Radiant's envoys. The silver-blue long-haired woman had such an idea partly because of the Sea Clan's mission. On the other hand, it was out of consideration for her own interests. When the old man behind Anha saw the nearly 3-meter-long fin ribbon at the end of the purple-blue long-haired woman's 2 giant horns and the thick golden silk thread in the middle of the fin ribbon, his expression became more and more solemn. Anha also noticed this. However, and he didn't take this to heart, and spoke bluntly. So it's the royal clan of the 8 clans of the Sea Clan. It's said that the royal clan of the 8 clans of the Sea Clan has endless internal strife. The royal clan of the 8 clans of the Sea Clan has fallen from the upper 3 clans to the lower 5 clans 100 years ago. Due to the internal strife, the royal clan slowly declined to the bottom of the 5 clans. Now that I look at it, it's not without reason that the royal clan is at the bottom of the 5 clans. The golden color on your fin ribbon is so rich, and your bloodline is so noble, but the royal clan didn't give you a piece of the rich sea domain in the ocean as a territory. Instead, they made you come here to compete with Radiance for resources. It seems like you're the sacrifice of the royal clan's internal strife. When the old man heard Anha's words, the corners of his mouth twitched. It was fine if young master he could see through these words, but why did he have to say it out loud? Wasn't this poking the royal clan's woman's sore spot? According to the old man's perception, the royal clan's woman's strength was not his match. This royal clan's expert who had just reached adulthood was only at level 3 immortal realm. It was not a match for the 2 Sea King experts standing behind him. However, although the old man could sense that the royal clan's woman's strength was not his, he didn't dare to relax. End of this chapter. Chapter 1300. In the Sea region, Sea Emperors could unleash extremely powerful combat power. It was common for them to surpass 5 to 6 ranks. His old bones main Fae was at peak immortal rank. He could defend himself against 2 Sea Kings and 1 Sea Emperor's all-out attack. However, the Sea region was too vast. If the 2 Sea Kings and Sea Emperor deliberately avoided them, it would be hard for him to launch an effective attack. If that Sea Emperor deliberately ambushed and with the 2 Sea Kings restraining him, he might not be able to protect at the first moment. If he went all out to deal with this royal family woman, Zhang Cheng and Sun Jiang would deal with the 2 Sea Kings. Zhang Cheng and Sun Jiang's main phase were at level 4 immortal rank monarch and level 5 immortal rank monarch respectively. However, it would be hard for the 2 of them to protect themselves against 2 level 4 immortal rank Sea Kings who could borrow the Sea region's ability. In case another Sea King came, and he would fall into an absolutely dangerous situation. No matter how strong he was among the younger generation, his Desolation bloodline Fae, Zhenyu Kuei, was only at Diamond V/Fantasy V. It had not even reached Myth Breed. Let alone the arrival of another Sea King, just the aftermath of the battle was enough to kill 1,000 times. The silver blue-haired woman's face turned gloomier every time she heard Enhe's words. Enhe's words directly poked the woman's sore spot. The woman hated the royal family's internal corruption. The woman was really a victim of the internal conflict, as Enhe said. The woman coming to this sea region was no different from being exiled. However, even if the woman agreed with Enhe's words, it did not mean that she could accept Enhe's wanton ridicule of the royal family. Especially the royal family's exile from the 3 upper races to the 5 lower races. Under the woman's gloomy face, the sea region that had just calmed down surged again. These fine waves hit the Zhenyu Kuei, causing his body to sway left and right in the sea region, looking very pathetic. According to the contract, Anha could feel the pain brought to the mountain-suppressing centipede by the tiny waves that carried a tremendous force hitting the mountain-suppressing centipede. However, Enhe did not recall the Zhenyu Kuei. Instead, he ordered the Zhenyu Kuei. Zhenyu Kuei, use Mountain Roar, dry the land. When Zhenyu Kuei heard Enhe's instructions, he raised his head and let out a thunderous roar. However, after the Zhenyu Kuei let out a roar, a huge mountain that was nearly 2,000 meters tall suddenly rose from the island. It made the light purple cocoon that was beating like a heart seem small and insignificant. The land on the island began to dry up and crack as the giant mountains rose from the ground, absorbing large amounts of seawater. Seeing this, Enhi's face suddenly changed. Logically speaking, there should be mountains emerging from the sea at this time. The mountains would absorb a large amount of seawater and create a large piece of land in the sea that was connected to the island. But why was there no movement in the sea at all? While Enhi was puzzled, a large number of brown, inconspicuous bugs that came along with the current covered the bottom of the sea. These bugs were the reef-touching lice hatched by Lugia. A large number of reef-touching lice secreted calcified substances to form a 3-meter-thick calcified shell on the seabed. This layer of calcified shell did not belong to the earth element, but the secretion of the reef lice. It was this layer of calcified shell that caused Zhen Yukue to lose control of the earth element at the bottom of the sea. Looking at the mountains rising from the ground on the island, the silver-blue long-haired woman strolled in the air and landed on the island with 2 middle-aged women behind her. In the Radiant Sea Treaty signed by the Sea Empire's 8 clans, it is clearly stated that the Radiant side will not interfere with the formation of the island whale embryo. If you have the ability, you still have to take the initiative to help the island whale embryo hatch. The island whale embryo at the bottom of the sea has just formed and is still unstable. According to the Radiant Sea Treaty, even if you are Her Holiness's disciple, you can't touch this large whale fall. Otherwise, it will be equivalent to the Radiant side openly tearing up the Radiant Sea Treaty. The Radiant side will become the enemy of all living beings in the sea region. Upon hearing that, Enhi revealed a sneer on his face. You also said that the island whale embryo has formed. Since the island whale embryo has formed, even if I take away the large whale fall now, it will not be considered a violation of the Radiant Sea Treaty. All these years, my Radiance's creation masters have hatched countless island whales and let them enter the sea. I, Hui Yao, have always been giving favors to the Sea Empire. A large whale fall can only produce dozens of island whale embryos. Dozens of island whale embryos compete with each other for nutrients, and the number of island whale embryos that can hatch in the end is no more than 5 fingers. If I take away the nutrients of this large whale fall, as long as I can hatch 1/3 of these island whale embryos afterward, it will be equivalent to helping the Sea Empire. This is what I say no matter where I go. If you dare to make a move, it can be considered that you are robbing the resources of this island owner, and you are unilaterally tearing up the Radiant Sea Treaty. When the Radiant Sea Treaty was signed 70 years ago, it was the Sea Empire's 8 clans who proposed to sign it with the Radiant Sea Treaty. If you tear up the Radiant Sea Treaty, will the Sea Empire's 8 clans stand on your side, or will they use your life to make amends? No one knows better than you. Therefore, the person who should leave is you, not me. If you leave now, we might be able to cooperate in the future. The silver-haired woman's expression changed again and again. She had put in a lot of effort for this large whale fall to happen here. However, she did not expect those dying giant whales to swim 250 nautical miles and enter the Radiant Sea's territory. This made the blue-haired woman have no choice but to carefully guard this large whale fall in the Radiant Sea's territory. Under the woman's guidance, the island whale hatched from a large whale fall could bring about a revolution in her relatively barren territory. Fortunately, there was an island directly above this large whale fall, and there was an aquatic fey breeding base built by humans on the island. The woman immediately sent people to the island to discuss. In order to block the news, she even sent heaven and earth fays like the sea source grass. Who would have thought that a disciple of Her Holiness would come to the island in the end? Because she understood the attitude of the 8 clans toward the Radiant Sea, the woman did not dare to tear up the Radiant Sea Treaty. On the one hand, after tearing up the Radiant Sea Treaty, the 8 clans would not support her. On the other hand, she was a member of the Sea Empire's clan. After tearing up the Radiant Sea Treaty, the Sea Empire's clan would likely be implicated by her. This would allow the other clans who coveted the position of the Sea Empire's clan to find an excuse to openly attack the Sea Empire's clan. Therefore, the woman finally decided to admit defeat. Recalling the cooperation that the disciple of His Holiness had mentioned, the lady took a deep breath and asked, "Is your master the Moon Empress, Chef Supreme, or Bamboo Monarch?" Upon hearing this, Enhe's face darkened and he said coldly, "My master is called Ji Changdeng. Happy winter solstice, add more clothes in the cold winter, pay attention to keep warm, don't catch a cold, love you." End of chapter. Chapter 1301. The silver-blue long-haired woman cursed in her heart. Solitary eternal lamp is indeed the eternal lamp of the 13 Lords of Radiance, but your master is not a Class 5 creation master. What's there to cooperate with me for? Before leaving, the woman suddenly thought of something and asked Enhe. Logically speaking, this large whale fall belongs to the owner of this island. Show me proof that you're the island's owner, and I'll leave immediately. And he was immediately dumbfounded. The Blissful Sea Tribe was the island's owner, and they had just completed the Blood Oath Extreme Duel with the Meow family's Beast Creation Garden in the royal capital. Even if he wanted to find the people of the Blissful Sea Tribe, he couldn't afford to buy the island from the Blissful Sea Tribe. It would take at least a day to bring the Blissful Sea Tribe from the royal capital and make a round trip. One day was enough for the woman in front of him to collect the resources of a large whale fall. The woman's eyes lit up when she saw Enhe's expression, but she immediately became angry. If you're not the island's owner, why are you talking nonsense with me for so long? You even brought up the Huihai Treaty. I'm not going to snatch Raging Waves City's resources. I'm going to snatch the island's owner's resources. Only the island's owner is qualified to negotiate with me. Looking at Enhe in front of her, the more she thought about it, the angrier she got. Thinking about how Enhe had ridiculed the royal family and used the Huihai Treaty to suppress her, the woman's expression turned gloomy. The woman thought to herself, "Give this kid a slap, as long as you don't break him. Even if the Lord Eternal Lamp is protective, he won't go so far as to catch me when I hide in the sea, right?" With that thought in mind, the woman immediately tilted her head and swung her horns forward. 2 dark blue water pillars hit the face of the old man behind Enhe. While the old man was blocking the water pillars, the woman waved her hand. A round slap landed on Enhe's face. With that slap, the woman immediately felt the anger in her heart calming down. The woman cursed loudly. "You're not the island's owner. Why are you talking to me about mountains?" Enhe's body became unsteady from the woman's slap, and he fell to the ground. And he, who fell to the ground, was stunned for a moment. Feeling the burning pain on his face, the anger in Enhe's heart rushed to the top of his head uncontrollably. After the old man behind Enhe casually released a skill to block the water column, he happened to see Enhe being slapped in the face by the woman. Upon seeing this scene, the old man immediately stood between Enhe and the woman and summoned his fae furiously. A sheep with 4 hooves ablaze with green flames and several curved horns on its head appeared in front of the old man. There was a layer of mist floating around the sheep's body. After the sheep was summoned by the old man, it suddenly stomped its front hooves. The 2 balls of green flames on its hooves attacked the woman. Upon seeing this, the 2 ocean kings behind the woman immediately activated their immortal bodies and blocked the attacks of the 2 green flames. The old man looked at the silver blue-haired woman in front of him and said coldly, "Don't hit people's faces. Slapping Master He's face is no different from slapping Master Changdeng's face. Woman, you are courting death." Just as both sides were about to launch their attacks, a young and clear voice rang out from afar. "Who gave you the right to destroy my island's fishing grounds and topography? You have to fight in the high seas, but before you fight, you have to calculate how much money you should compensate me to make up for the island's losses." This voice came from Lin Yuan. On the way here, Lin Yuan thought about it again and finally decided to take off the mask that represented Sky City's City Lord identity. He was going to fight for this large-scale whale fall as the Moon Empress disciple. Qi Heng had returned to the royal capital, and Lin Yuan didn't care what identity he used. Anyway, there was a small probability that the dispute would be spread by Enhe, and even if it was spread, it wouldn't prove anything. In addition, Lin Yuan had to use the identity of the Moon Empress disciple to solve the Meow family's Beast Creation Gardens problems in Sky City. If Qi Heng found out afterward, he might think that the Moon Empress disciple had intercepted the Sky City's City Lord. Lin Yuan held the Stormy Wave Guard captain's certificate in his hand, which could prove that Lin Yuan was the owner of this large-scale whale fall. Next, be it within he or the marine species experts, Lin Yuan was always the most reasonable one. After knowing that Lin Yuan had decided to participate in this storm as the Moon Empress disciple, the mother of Bloodbath and Lu Jie took off their masks. After thinking for a moment, Lu Jie decided to wear the Spirit Guard's standard mask on his face. He didn't intend to tell the outside world that Lu Jie was the Chief Guard's disciple. While talking, Lin Yuan's eyes weren't idle. He was using Morbius True data to find out about the bull-shaped fae that was bigger than the island in the sea, as well as the huge purple cocoon beside the towering mountain on the island. Fae name: Mountain Guard Kue, Fae species, odorifery/desolate, Fae grade, Diamond, 10 out of 10, Fae type, Earth, Fae quality, Fantasy V abilities: Frowny Face, Mountain Ripple, gather the power of the mountain and charge toward the target. Mountain Ripple 9 tremors. The target hit by the mountain ripple will suffer 9 tremors when the earth elements invade the body. The 9 tremors damage will not stack, but an explosion will occur when 2 tremors collide. Mountain Roar. The roar commands the earth elements within a certain range, causing them to jump and gather together to form a towering mountain. Dry Land. Uses the earth elements to absorb the other elemental energy in the surroundings, using the other elemental energy as nutrients to make the earth elements more active and harder. Mountain Defense. Sacrifices a designated mountain and shrouds the target with the mountain's endurance, helping the target resist physical and elemental damage. Earth Vein Transformation. Injects all the earth elements in the body into the ground, triggering the earth veins and changing the terrain. Through the earth veins, the activity of the earth elements in the ground will be enhanced, causing the activity of the earth elements to multiply. Exclusive skill: Frowny Face, Earth Suppression Lienli. When hearing the target's voice, the karmic lines on the target's body can be detected based on the target's voice. Through the karmic lines, the target's good or evil can be determined. When facing the judged good, the target's defense will be greatly increased. When facing the judged evil, the target's attack power will be increased. Only one target can be detected at a time, and the increase in detection will not increase with the number of targets detected. Forbidden Fruit of Earth. Orders the earth to gather all the earth elements and produce a forbidden fruit on the earth veins. After eating the forbidden fruit, the entire land will become a part of the body for a short time. Chapter 1302. Fae name: Awakening Hibernation Horned Dragon, Fae species, Lepidoptera/horned species, Fae grade, Diamond, 10 out of 10, Fae type, Water/Earth, Fae quality, Fantasy IV abilities: Frowny Face, Surging Rock. Condense a solid rock body by tempering the earth elements in the ground. Control the rock body to form various shapes and surge out of the surface to launch attacks. Repelling rock body. Through the mutation of the earth elements in the rock body, allow the rock body to have a certain gravitational and repulsive force and freely manipulate them. Awakening Hibernation Statue. Condense a stone statue with the same strength as the main body. The stone statue can recover injuries by absorbing earth elements. Water-Earth Transformation. Swallow the water elements and earth elements into the abdomen. The water elements around the swallowed earth elements can be freely transformed into earth elements and earth elements into water elements. Dragon Body Liberation. Instantly stimulate the energy in the body, gather the energy in the body on the dragon horn, and launch an all-out attack at the target. Hibernation Revival. When receiving fatal damage, the fatal damage can be transferred to the Awakening Hibernation Statue. When the Awakening Hibernation Statue shatters, the main body will obtain vitality equal to the damage the Awakening Hibernation Statue received. Exclusive skill: Frowny Face, Weak Insect Body. Transform oneself into an insect state, overturning Stinger, to accumulate energy. When one wants to transform into the main body, one needs to go through a period of cocooning. At that time, the accumulated energy in the insect body will be perfectly integrated into the original body. The insect body can contain twice the energy of the main body. Earth Attraction Body. Turn oneself into the core of gravitational or repulsive force. Under the state of gravitational force, one can attract the surrounding things to the front of oneself. Under the effect of repulsive force, one can expel everything around oneself in other directions with oneself as the origin. Lin Yuan didn't investigate these two phases blindly and subconsciously. Through his perception, Lin Yuan found that these two phases had the weakest auras in the entire place. This meant that these two phases were likely to be in He's phase. Probing these two phases would be considered obtaining an He's information. Lin Yuan's eyes suddenly narrowed. And He's strength was stronger than Lin Yuan had imagined. It was no wonder and he could take advantage of Gu Lang. Had it not been for Zhong Zai's desolate bloodline Fei, the heaven-burning centipede's bloodline purification and the red plum meteorite fire, Zhong Zai might not have been in He's match. He might not even be in He's opponent in a fight. And He's desolate bloodline Fei, suppressing Mountain Kuei, was a pure earth-type desolate bloodline Fei and had extremely strong control over earth. Lin Yuan's golden wing, a desolation bloodline Fei, was only at bronze, and its ability had yet to take form. It was impossible to make an effective comparison with Zhenyu Kuei. If Zhenyu Kuei and Heaven-Burning Ho were to be compared, Zhenyu Kuei's skill, Mountain Shaking 9 Quakes, and Heaven-Burning Ho's skill, Heavenly Flame 8 Refinements, were similar. Although the damage of the Mountain Shaking 9 Tremors could not be stacked like the Mystical Flame 8 Refinements, the damage of the Mountain Shaking 9 Tremors could not be stacked. However, it could induce the earth element to explode in the process of vibrating, causing damage to the target's body. Combined with Mountain Shaker, Lin Yuan could not accurately estimate how much damage the Diamond X/Fantasy V Mountain Shaker 9 shocks would cause to the target. In short, with just these two skills, Zhenyu Kuei could challenge those of a higher level. At this moment, the 1,000-meter-tall mountains on the island were most likely the result of mountain-suppressing Kuei's mountain roar. The mountain-suppressing Ho's dry land solidification allowed Zhenyu Kuei to not be passive in any environment. The ability to turn other elements into earth elements allowed Zhenyu Kuei to become an all-around Fei in all environments. This was much stronger than Zhong Zai's Heaven-Burning Ho and Lin Yuan's Golden Wing. Zhong Zai's Heaven-Burning Ho and Lin Yuan's Golden Wing could not adapt to all environments. In an environment without fire elements, the Heaven-Burning Ho's strength would be limited. In an environment without wind, the Golden Wing would not be able to control the wind elements to carry out effective attacks on the target. However, the strength of a Desolation Bloodline Fei could not be compared based on whether it could adapt to the environment or not. Take Lin Yuan's Golden Wing for example. The Golden Wing's exclusive skill, Unpredictable Temperament, could store any exclusive skills and passive skills belonging to other Feis. This was not something that the Zhenyu Kuei's exclusive skills and skills could compare. If Lin Yuan was willing, the Zhenyu Kuei's exclusive skills, Earth Suppression Lotus Rite, and Forbidden Fruit of Earth, Golden Wing could be stored. In fact, the Zhenyu Kuei was not only a Fei that could adapt to all environments, but its abilities, Dry Land Solidification and Earth Vein Transformation, could also enhance other Earth-type Feis. Especially the Earth Vein Transformation, which could guide the Earth Vein to change the direction of the Earth Vein, was something that Lin Yuan's Source Sand could not do. The Earth element's activity would double, allowing any Earth-type ability to achieve double the original effect. The mountain range fortification allowed the Zhenyu Kuei to have the ability to protect itself and its companions by sacrificing mountains. In addition, the mountain range could be easily created with the mountain's roar. This greatly enhanced the defensive effect of the mountain range fortification. The exclusive skill, Earth Suppression Lotus Rite, was able to distinguish between good and evil. It was similar to a kind of mind-reading ability. It allowed Anha to use karma to distinguish between good and evil. Not only could the Earth Suppression Lotus Rite determine good and evil, but it could also use good and evil to increase its defense or attack power. On a powerful target, a 20% increase in attack power or defense was not a small amount. As for the Zhenyu Kuei's exclusive skill, Forbidden Fruit of Earth, Lin Yuan had nothing to say. The Forbidden Fruit of Earth was the strongest exclusive skill among all the Earth-type Feis that Lin Yuan had seen. When the Zhenyu Kuei used his exclusive skill, Forbidden Earth Fruit, he could proudly say to all the Earth Elemental Feis, "I am the Earth." In fact, what made Lin Yuan feel that Anha was strong was not just the Zhenyu Kuei's strength, but the combination of the Zhenyu Kuei and the Awakening Hibernation Drake's abilities. The Awakening Hibernation Drake was an Earth-type and Water-type Fae. At the same time, it could also use extremely exquisite gravitational and repulsive forces. If the Zhenyu Kuei was said to be a functional Fae with the Desolation bloodline that combined offense and defense, then the Awakening Hibernation Drake would be a perfect main attacker. The Awakening Hibernation Drake's ability, Awakening Hibernation Image, was a perfect copy of an existence with the same combat power as its main body. The ability, Hibernation Revival, allowed the Awakening Hibernation Drake to borrow the Awakening Hibernation Image to reduce damage. After the Awakening Hibernation Image was shattered, the Awakening Hibernation Drake could also use it to recover a certain amount of vitality. This allowed the Awakening Hibernation Drake to not only treat the Awakening Hibernation Image as its assistant, but it could also use it as a shield and a medical kit. The ability, Water-Earth Transformation, allowed the Awakening Hibernation Drake to be more agile in combat. The Dragon Body Liberation gave the Awakening Hibernation Drake the ability to strike at full force. Lin Yuan had never seen a Fae that could use gravitational and repulsive forces. He wondered if being able to use gravity and repulsion would be strong in battle. However, the ability to attract things in the surroundings to its front or use itself as the origin to push everything in the surroundings away would not be too weak. Chapter 1303. The only thing that could be criticized about the Awakening Hibernating Drake was its weak ability. The hinterland hibernating worm would need to go through a cocoon to transform into a Awakening Hibernating Drake. During this process, the Awakening Hibernating Drake would be an immovable target. However, this was precisely the reason why the Awakening Hibernating Drake was so powerful. When the cocoon broke and the Awakening Hibernating Drake appeared, the accumulated energy in the hinterland hibernating worm state would allow the Awakening Hibernating Drake's strength to multiply. The Awakening Hibernating Drake was undoubtedly another Fae that could fight above its grade. The Awakening Hibernating Drake was an Earth and Earth dual Fae. In addition, the Awakening Hibernating Drake had the ability to convert water and earth elements. And his Awakening Hibernating Drake was only at Fantasy 4. One reason he wanted to fight for this large whale fall was to obtain the island whale embryo. The other reason was to use the large whale fall's nutrients to increase the Awakening Hibernating Drake's quality from Fantasy 4 to Fantasy V. Lin Yuan secretly calculated in his heart. Just with the Suppressing Mountain Kuei and the Awakening Hibernating Drake summoned by an he, Lin Yuan would not be able to defeat an he with his contracted phase. In order to defeat an he, Lin Yuan would need to use the Sacred Source Lifeform Princess Sacred Sword Mode. After inspecting the Suppressing Mountain Kuei and the Awakening Hibernating Drake, Lin Yuan did not inspect any other phase present. With the Void Shadow Demon in his shadow, he could sense that none of the other phase present were below Immortal rank. As for Immortal rank phase, Lin Yuan was unable to use Morbius True Data to inspect them. Forcefully inspecting them would instead cause the inspected target to react. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, the silver blue-haired woman and an he's side, which were in a stalemate, suddenly looked in Lin Yuan's direction. However, the expressions on their faces were completely different. And he's face, which was originally filled with anger, revealed an ecstatic expression. The silver blue-haired woman's brows were tightly furrowed. The woman's expression, which had been one of relief, became abnormally grave. The old man behind and he looked at Lin Yuan and turned to shout at the silver blue-haired woman. Flame-treading light smoke beast, immortal body, activate. Even if I can't keep you here, I will keep the two sea kings behind you here. Let's see how you're going to develop in the territory without your left and right arms. Following the elder's command, the multi-horned sheep that was shrouded in mist and stood on green flames immediately let out a deafening roar. Immediately after, the fog above the island thickened, and green flames surged within the fog. In the mist, a middle-aged man with Fey characteristics appeared in the air. He had goat horns on his head, hooves on his feet, and a tail on his buttocks. His skin was covered with fur and colored armor. His eyes had the eyes of a beast, and his neck had the mane of a beast. His body was like colored glass. 9 distinct Fey characteristics appeared on the middle-aged man's body, which was shrouded in mist and had 4 feet treading on flames. This was enough to prove that this flame-treading light smoke beast was a rank 9 immortal Fey. After the flame-treading smoke beast activated its immortal skill, the lingering mist shot towards the silver-blue-haired woman and the 2 women behind her. Looking at the green flames within the smoke, the silver-blue long-haired woman knew that she could not dodge at this time. Although he could easily dodge this attack by running away, the 2 subordinates behind him couldn't. Under such an attack, even if the 2 of them didn't die, they would be severely injured. In a battle where one's rank was superior, once they were injured, there would be no possibility of escape. After understanding this, the silver-blue long-haired woman shouted, "The 2 of you can't block it. Don't block it forcefully. Hurry up and activate your immortal body and hide under my tail." After saying that, the silver-blue long-haired woman's horns, which were almost as long as her body, released a faint blue light. The woman swung the 2 thick golden fins on her horns forward. The woman's original human form suddenly had some fish-like characteristics. The woman's legs suddenly closed, and glossy silver scales grew on her legs. Although the woman's closed legs didn't form a mermaid's tail, it was even more magnificent than a mermaid's tail. At the end of the tail, there was a silver fin that drifted with the wind. There was also a thick golden thread on the silver fin at the tail. As the 3 fin ribbons danced, the woman seemed to have become the core of the sea. At this moment, the sea turned from its original dark blue to the color of ink. The ink seawater formed a huge wave that was enough to cover a 2-kilometer mountain, but this huge wave didn't rush toward the island. Instead, it rushed toward the light fog and green smoke that the flaming treading light smoke beast was attacking. When the ink seawater touched the green flame that was wrapped in the light fog, the golden thread on the woman's 3 fin ribbons suddenly lit up. The woman stretched out her hand and pointed forward as she shouted, "Ink Sea Abyssal, Darkwater Emperor's Edict." Because he had been slapped in the face, the elder's heart was already filled with killing intent. Therefore, he ordered the flaming treading light smoke beast to activate its immortal body and attack with a killing move, leaving no room for maneuver. Under such a strong attack, the purple-blue long-haired woman and the 2 sea kings behind her didn't have the time to react. However, Sun Jiang, who was from the 5 Thearchs mercenary team, recognized Lin Yuan the moment he saw him. The person who represented the 5 Thearchs mercenary team to attend the Nyx assembly was Sun Jiang. Lin Yuan had shown brilliantly in the civil and martial duel with Zhong Zhe at the Nyx assembly, making everyone unaware that he was the Moon Empress disciple. Before anyone knew that he was the Moon Empress disciple, they couldn't take their eyes off this young man. Moreover, during the Nyx assembly, Lin Yuan didn't just take the first place in the civil and martial duel. In the civil and martial duel that no one saw, Lin Yuan also suppressed Zhong Zhe and took the first place. Behind the Moon Empress disciple stood a youth wearing a Spirit Guard standard mask. Looking at his figure and temperament, this youth wearing the Spirit Guard standard mask was very likely the Spirit Guard Chief Guard Knight Leaning Moon's disciple. 2 of Her Holiness disciples were on this island, and the Moon Empress disciple, Lin Yuan, even said that this island was his private property. It seemed like it would be difficult for young Master He to obtain the large whale fall. While Sun Jiang was thinking, Zhang Cheng, who was beside him, couldn't help but speak after hearing Lin Yuan's words. "Kid, do you have the proof from Stormy Wave City? To prove that you are the island's owner?" Lin Yuan raised his brows and replied, "Of course. Of course. I can't prove that this island is mine, and I don't have the right to ask you to stop. However, you didn't seem to have the intention to stop after listening to my words. Instead, you started to fight." Zhang Cheng's face lit up when he heard Lin Yuan's words, while Sun Jiang's heart was in his throat. Sun Jiang couldn't care less and quickly pulled Zhang Cheng, who was beside him. Chapter 1304. Only those who attended the Great Night meeting were fortunate enough to see the Moon Empress disciples and the Chief Night Bureau's disciples. There were no star web reporters at the Nyx assembly, and no one dared to take photos of such a grand event. If they took a picture of a big boss and spread it out, it would cause a disaster for no reason. Therefore, most of the factions had only heard of the Moon Empress disciple's name. However, Lin Yuan had been chosen as a lucky spectator during the challenge match at the All-Star match. Many factions used this opportunity to know what the Moon Empress disciple looked like. Sun Jiang remembered that he had told Zhang Cheng before, but Zhang Cheng clearly hadn't watched this year's All-Star competition. Otherwise, it was impossible for him not to recognize Lin Yuan now. Otherwise, no matter how stupid Zhang Cheng was, he wouldn't rush to question Lin Yuan in front of an he to show off. Zhang Cheng was suddenly pulled by Sun Jiang, and he immediately turned to look at Sun Jiang. She didn't understand why Sun Jiang was pulling her so hard. Seeing Sun Jiang winking at him, Zhang Cheng thought that Sun Jiang had taken the wrong medicine. Just now, when Zhang Cheng called an he to wake up, and he glared at him several times, which made Zhang Cheng feel very wronged. At this moment, Zhang Cheng wanted to take this opportunity to change in his opinion of him. Thus, Zhang Cheng ignored Sun Jiang, who was winking at him. Instead, he turned to look at Lin Yuan and yelled, "You're not going to fight me? Our young master he wants this island. Hurry up and hand over the proof to young master he. When young master he is done with the matter at hand, you won't be lacking in benefits." When Sun Jiang heard that, he hated himself for only pulling Zhang Cheng and not covering his mouth. Zhang Cheng's mouth was like the crotch of an old lady's cotton pants. Nothing good would come out of his mouth. That was the Moon Empress disciple. What right does a leader of a top-notch faction like you have to speak to the Moon Empress disciple in such a manner? Even if young master he was Lord Changdang's disciple, there would still be a lot of benefits. Young master he was not qualified to say such words to Lin Yuan, who was also His Holiness disciple. Since Zhang Cheng had already said it, there was no turning back. Sun Jiang was prepared to inform an he of Lin Yuan's identity immediately. Based on Sun Jiang's understanding of an he, who had never been concerned about external affairs, it was impossible for an he to recognize the Moon Empress disciple just based on appearance. Just as Sun Jiang was about to tell an he about Lin Yuan's identity, Sun Jiang heard the voice of the youth on the back of the huge butterfly who was rushing toward them. "Do I have to give your young master he what he wants? I didn't know your young master he had such a big face." Sun Jiang's heart thumped when he heard that. She hurriedly came to Anhe's ear, bent down and whispered in Anhe's ear. "Young master he, the person who came is Lin Yuan, the Moon Empress disciple. The youth wearing the Spirit Guard standard mask behind Lin Yuan is most likely Night Leaning Moon's disciple." Since Zhang Cheng's words had caused a conflict, and he had to know Lin Yuan's identity. Otherwise, Lin Yuan's words would have been enough to ignite Anhe, who had been slapped in the face. If Lin Yuan and Anhe had a confrontation, then the matter would be completely blown up. However, Sun Jiang was an emperor-class powerhouse who had come out of the Bright Lamp Tower to establish his own force. At this time, he simply could not control the development of the situation. It was useless to worry. In the end, it still depended on Lin Yuan and Anhe. Looking at the enraged Zhang Cheng after hearing Lin Yuan's words, Sun Jiang came to Zhang Cheng's side and covered Zhang Cheng's mouth tightly. He had made up his mind to stop Zhang Cheng from speaking. If Zhang Cheng said something disrespectful at this time and the Moon Empress disciple pursued the matter, Zhang Cheng would be in big trouble. When Anhe heard Sun Jiang's words, his eyes flickered. And he took a deep breath and said to the old man who was fighting with the silver blue-haired woman, "Grandfather Gu, stop first." After asking the old man to stop, and he turned to look at Lin Yuan with a complicated gaze. At the same time, he looked at Lu Jie. After looking for a long time, and he said, "Apologies. My uncle didn't know your identity and said something disrespectful. I hope you don't mind." When Zhang Cheng, whose mouth was covered by Sun Jiang, heard Anhe's words, he was stunned. He didn't understand why young master he would apologize to the person who came. The person who just came obviously didn't give young master he any face, and from young master he's words, he was apologizing on his behalf. Unlike Zhang Cheng, who was clueless about the situation, Sun Jiang's heart was overflowing with warmth when he heard Anhe's words. And he had just suffered a slap, and his heart was raging with rage. Since Anhe was willing to speak up for Zhang Cheng, it was enough to prove that Anhe really treated Zhang Cheng as his elder and not just a servant. even if Zhang Cheng's words never made and he feel comfortable. When Lin Yuan heard and he took the initiative to apologize, he didn't continue to put on an overbearing attitude. However, when he looked at the island in front of him, he didn't feel happy at all. The island that the Sea of Bliss had painstakingly built to make a comeback had been destroyed beyond recognition by he and the sea species experts. If they wanted to develop this island again, everything had to be rebuilt. At this moment, the angelfish of bliss that the Sea of Bliss had reared in the distant sea had probably escaped into the sea. I appreciate your apology. Calculate the losses on this island, then leave this island. Everyone can develop on their own and live in peace. Snatching resources in the public area depends on one's own ability. In someone else's territory, there is no such thing as fair competition for resources. If you want to fight for resources in someone else's territory, it is equivalent to plundering. I think young master he should understand this principle. And his face suddenly turned gloomy, and he didn't speak anymore. The old man in front of him he was also puzzled and frowned at Lin Yuan. The old man was he's path protector, and he always followed he wherever he went. And he didn't participate in the Nix assembly, so the old man naturally couldn't find out Lin Yuan's identity from he. After the Nix assembly, and he was taught a lesson by Her Highness Long Lantern and driven out to train. The old man couldn't find out who the Moon Empress disciple was from others. At this moment, the old man saw and he stepped forward and asked, "Let me confirm your identity now. You are the Moon Empress disciple, and you are the Chief Guard Ye's disciple, right?" Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan and Lu Jie nodded and calmly admitted their identities. Back then, Lin Yuan took off the mask that represented Sky City's city lord and took over the island as the Moon Empress disciple. He wanted to communicate with he as an equal with this identity. And he could give face to Her Highness disciple, but he might not necessarily give face to the faction's leader. Through the contact with Zhong Zhe and Gu Lang, Lin Yuan could feel their contempt for the faction. From Zhong Zhe and Gu Lang's attitude, Lin Yuan could feel their contempt for the faction. Chapter 1305. After Lin Yuan and Lu Jie nodded, the old man's and Zhang Cheng's gazes at them immediately changed. In particular, the old man behind and he was looking at Lin Yuan with a somewhat complicated expression. If it was another Majesty's disciple, young master he might not give him any face when he got angry. Even the Class 5 Creation Master, Bamboo Monarch's disciple, Gu Lang Anha, didn't show any mercy. However, this matter involved the Moon Empress disciple, so he would definitely give her face. It seemed that Anha was destined to give up this large whale fall. The old man knew Lin Yuan's and Lu Jie's identities, but Zhang Cheng was dumbfounded. After being dumbfounded, Zhang Cheng felt a lingering fear in his heart. In the end, Zhang Cheng thought of Anheuser-Busch apologizing on his behalf. Zhang Cheng's uneasy heart suddenly gave birth to a warm current that washed over his whole body. Anha extended his hand to Lin Yuan and said, "Show me the proof from Stormy Wave City." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan placed the document that the Stormy Wave Guard captain had just signed 2 days ago in Anha's hand. Seeing the seal of the Stormy Wave City Lord Mansion and the date of change on the document, and he calmly returned the certificate to Lin Yuan and said, "I'll let you guys assess the damage on the island. I won't give you any less compensation." The proof just now was equivalent to Lin Yuan giving he a lesson, letting him understand that he had to start from the root of things. Otherwise, all of his efforts would be in vain once someone else grasped the root of the problem. Although Anha decided not to compete for this large whale fall. However, the large whale that was supposed to be in his hands had changed owners, which made he even more unhappy. And he turned his head and looked sharply at the silver blue-haired woman. "I don't want the large whale fall anymore. It's time for us to settle the score." The silver blue-haired woman ignored he and spoke to Lin Yuan. "Are you the disciple of the Radiant Moon Empress? Nice to meet you. My name is Indai. I came here to help you defend this huge whale fall. That's why I got into a conflict with them. At the end of the day, it's all thanks to my guidance that the whale would land here. Now they're blaming me for not letting them receive this huge whale fall. You can't just ignore it." Upon hearing her words, Lin Yuan's brows twitched wildly. A group of cetacean fays at the end of their lifespans would have to cruise for up to 3 years before dying. The whales would cruise to determine where they would land in the end. The silver blue-haired woman was a member of one of the 8 imperial clans of Neptune. She indeed had the ability to change the giant whale's choice of landing position. But let's not talk about whether you were the one who caused this massive whale fall. Even if you were the one who caused it, what does it have to do with me? It has only been 3 days since I became the master of this island. As for the woman's claim that it was to stop he from collecting the large whale fall, that was even more ridiculous. Obviously, it was this woman who was waiting here to collect the large whale fall. The conflict between her and he was purely because of the competition for resources. Looking at the palm print on the left side of he's face that hadn't disappeared, Lin Yuan could guess that there was no longer any interest in this conflict. The reason why he still couldn't give up. If you slapped someone in the face and wanted them to not find trouble with you, then wouldn't he become a male bodhisattva? When Dai saw that Lin Yuan did not respond to her, she could not help but blink. Originally, before slapping he in the face, Dai had been forced by the situation to give up the large-scale whale fall. She had slapped he in the face purely to vent her anger. Dai knew that he would find trouble with her after she vented her anger and would not let it go. However, as an expert of the imperial clan who had just reached adulthood, Dai also had the capital to slap he in the face. As long as Dai wanted to hide, unless the eternal lamp crown evaporated all the ocean, she would not be able to find him. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her to find him. Without this large whale fall, Dai did not care much about this not-so-rich territory outside the Radiance sect. However, Lin Yuan's arrival had solved Dai's dilemma to some extent. In addition, Lin Yuan's temperament and appearance were very attractive to Dai. Somehow, Dai just wanted to take the initiative to talk to Lin Yuan a few more times. When the old man next to he, Zhang Cheng, and Sun Jiang heard Dai's words, their faces turned terrifyingly gloomy. Just as the old man was about to command the flaming light smoke beast to attack Dai again, Dai took the lead and spoke to Lin Yuan again. My territory is outside the stormy wave city. From west to east, it is about 100,000 square nautical miles. If you help me, I will let you choose the resources in this sea region. Perhaps we can even mutually benefit from this 100,000 square nautical miles of sea region and reach some cooperation. Just now, he said that his master is called Ji Changdeng and wants to cooperate with me. I am not interested in the Radiance Sect's Majesty who is not a creation master, so I am willing to trade with you. Before Lin Yuan could speak, he exploded when he heard Dai's words. From Dai's tone, he could hear that Dai was currying favor with Lin Yuan's master and despising his master. Thinking of his master's situation, he could no longer hold it in. He immediately turned his head and spoke to Lin Yuan. I heard that you are the champion of the Evernight Convention's civil and martial ring. You should be very strong. I know that you really want to trade with this woman of the Ocean Empire's 8 clans. Let's have a fight. If I lose, I will no longer pursue this female seafood and find trouble with her. If you lose, I don't need you to do anything. I just hope that you know that the Radiance Sect's 13 majesties are equal. Among the 13 majesties, the Moon Empress, the Chef Supreme, and the Bamboo Monarch are not higher than the other 10 majesties. Lin Yuan was stunned by He's words. He did not understand why he would inexplicably challenge him. However, based on Dai's words and He's reaction, Lin Yuan felt that He's mind was relatively simple. He did not like to hide anything and liked to express it straightforwardly. Lin Yuan could hear that he was very repulsed by the opinion that a Class 5 Creation Master status was higher than the other majesties. Perhaps this was why he always found trouble with Gu Lang and Zhong Zhe. Zhong Zhe and Gu Lang just did not like he, but they did not really hate him. The Radiance Sect's 13 majesties jointly maintained the Radiance Federation's glory as one of the 3 major federations and the stability of the Radiance Sect's billions of people. Every majesty had an indispensable position and was working hard for the Radiance Sect. Lin Yuan's master, the Moon Empress, the Chef Supreme, and the Bamboo Monarch were Class 5 Creation Masters who could enhance phase, and the other majesties had to look for the Moon Empress, the Chef Supreme, and the Bamboo Monarch for help. But when it came to the position of majesties, there was no difference in their status. Lin Yuan loved his master, the Moon Empress, the most, but he also respected the other 13 majesties of the Radiant sect. However, and he was right about one thing. Indai's words had aroused Lin Yuan's interest. Chapter 1306. Lin Yuan had the intention to cooperate with Indai regarding the resources within the 100,000 miles of the sea. Lin Yuan walked in front of He and looked at the frowning and stubbornness in He's eyes. He said softly, "As far as I can remember, I have never seen His Majesty the Eternal Lamp. But in my heart, His Majesty and my master are both majesties, and there is no difference between them. The Sea tribe is born from phase, and we are used to looking at things from the perspective of phase, but we are humans. It's not just me. Zongzi and Gu Lang think the same." Lin Yuan looked at the stubbornness in He's eyes. It was probably because of this that He had always been at odds with Gu Lang and Zongzi. If not for the fact that He already had this idea in his heart, Indai's words would not have hurt him so much. And he was stunned when he heard Lin Yuan's words. And he pursed his lips and stared into Lin Yuan's eyes. Looking at the unfeigned sincerity in Lin Yuan's eyes, and he felt as though he could see a pure and real soul through Lin Yuan's eyes. However, the fact that staring into Lin Yuan's eyes made him fall into a daze made He's pursed lips even tighter. And he only felt that the back of his ears was a little hot. And he hurriedly changed the topic. He casually grabbed a rainbow light orb and said to Lin Yuan, "I still want to fight with you. If you win, I will give this uncontracted sacred source life form to you as a wager." Lin Yuan looked at the sacred source life form in his hand and asked, "What about me? What about me?" And he pointed at the giant purple cocoon beside him and said, "My awakening terror drake needs this large-scale whale fall to evolve from Fantasy 4 to Fantasy V. If I win, I hope you will allow me to use the resources from this large-scale whale fall to raise the awakening terror drake's quality. Raising the awakening terror drake's quality will require less than 1/10 of the resources from this large-scale whale fall." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan shook his head. With a shake of his hand, he also took out a colorful light ball and said to He. He said to He, "This large-scale whale fall is also useful to me, so I cannot allow you to use the resources from this large-scale whale fall. I won't take advantage of you. I'll also use an uncontracted sacred source life form as the wager." Lu Jie, the slaughterer butterfly, and the mother of bloodbath were used to Lin Yuan and He's wager. In the mansion, Lin Yuan had taken out many sacred source life forms for others to contract. The old man behind He did not feel anything, but Zhang Cheng and Sun Jiang were not calm. This was a sacred source life form. Sacred source life forms were Zhang Cheng and Sun Jiang's dream. Moreover, the two of them had never contracted a sacred source life form, so they coveted sacred source life forms. However, Zhang Cheng and Sun Jiang were not the most greedy ones, but Indai. Indai was a member of the royal family who had been ostracized, and even her fiefdom was given to her in the sea region, which was barren of resources. Therefore, even though Indai had reached the immortal realm, she had never contracted a sacred source life form like Zhang Cheng and Sun Jiang. The main reason why Indai was willing to come to this sea region, which was barren of resources, was that she wanted to see the sea region that he was guarding. Could this sea region coincidentally open up a Class 5 water world dimensional rift? At the immortal realm, Indai could easily obtain a sacred source life form from a Class 5 water world dimensional rift. However, Class 5 water world dimensional rifts were too difficult to obtain. In any case, Indai had never encountered one before. However, among the 3 upper races of the Ocean Empire's 8 races, Mermaid Mang from the Imperial Mermaid race happened to open a Class 5 water world dimensional rift in her territory not long ago. This made Indai extremely envious. It was not that Indai had not thought of snatching the sacred source life form from the Class 5 water world dimensional rift in Mermaid Mang's territory. However, Indai could not defeat Mermaid Mang. Even if Mermaid Mang entered her own sea region, Indai could only flee. After all, Mermaid Mang was a Class 9 Great Monarch and a Class 8 Immortal Realm expert. At the same time, Mermaid Mang possessed a sacred source life form. Recently, Een Dai had been feeling a faint sense of danger. Based on her intuition, Een Dai felt that this sense of danger was related to Mermaid Mang. Right now, the sacred source life form that she had been yearning for was in someone else's hands as a wager. This gave Een Dai the illusion that sacred source life forms had become cabbages. And he did not say anything and only nodded. He agreed with Lin Yuan's words. And he felt rather melancholy. The water element produced by a large whale fall was the purest. According to the grade of Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls, the water element in a large whale fall was much purer than Ding Fusheng's pearl. To be able to reach the purity of Lan Lanshan's pearl, there was almost no stock of Heavenly Maiden grade water elemental pearls in the market. It seemed that if he wanted to improve the waking hibernating nightmare dragon's quality, he would have to encounter another large whale fall. Otherwise, his master would have to seek help from Bamboo Monarch or Chef Supreme. And he did not want to cause trouble for his master. Thus, he planned to rely on his own strength to collect the Heavenly Maiden grade water elemental pearls in Lan Lanshan's pearl or search for information about a large whale fall. The battle now is unfair to you. My waking hibernating nightmare dragon has been in a cocoon for a long time and can break out at any time. I will give you time to prepare. Once you are done, we will begin the battle. Lin Yuan shook his head and said, "There is no need to prepare. There's no need to set up anything." After saying that, Lin Yuan did not probe Zhong Zhe like he had done during the civil and martial duel. The princess's projection appeared behind Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan had probed Zhong Zhe because he did not know what phase Zhong Zhe had. Now that An He's phase had been summoned and displayed, Lin Yuan had finished probing them. An He's desolate bloodline phase, mountain-suppressing Kuei and the waking hibernating nightmare dragon, had the ability to fight above their ranks and protect themselves. In a battle with An He, Lin Yuan would bring out his full strength from the start and catch An He off guard. When An He heard Lin Yuan say "let's begin," he thought that Lin Yuan was looking down on him. However, when he saw Lin Yuan activate the sacred source life form without hesitation, and he knew that Lin Yuan was not looking down on him. If Lin Yuan had been looking down on him, he would not have used the sacred source life form. And he immediately entered a battle state. However, and he did not want to take advantage of Lin Yuan, so he decided not to use the sacred source life form in the battle. At that moment, and he saw the phantom of the woman behind Lin Yuan suddenly change. The phantom of the woman closed her arms and embraced Lin Yuan in a gentle and devout manner. The moment she embraced Lin Yuan, the phantom behind Lin Yuan turned into a sword that could be held in one's hand. The scabbard of the sword was clearly engraved with a woman's appearance. However, in the princess sacred sword embrace state, the scabbard could no longer block the eerie sword light shining from the tip of the sword. Lin Yuan had already unsheathed the sword. Several dark crows were circling around the sword in Lin Yuan's hand. End of chapter. Chapter 1307. One after another, dark crows flew out of Lin Yuan's sacred sword's blade. Each dark crow was wrapped in the Dark Knight's murderous aura. It was as though countless life forms were slowly withering under the attack of the dark crows in the endless night. In the end, there were a total of 28 dark crows flying around the sword tip. Under the swing of Lin Yuan's sword tip, the 28 dark crows, which were attached with the power of dark death, formed an orderly line and attacked on her. And he was stunned by Lin Yuan's fighting style. He did not expect Lin Yuan to not summon any more phase after activating the sacred source life form. Instead, he used the sacred source life form's ability to attack An He. However, An He only froze for a moment before regaining his wits. And he had keenly sensed a trace of dark element world power from the dark crows flying out of Lin Yuan's sword tip. This dark element world power caused An He's expression to change drastically. And he did not expect Lin Yuan to be so powerful at such a young age. When An He first heard from his master that the Moon Empress disciple had defeated Zhong Zhe and become the champion of both the civil and martial arena, and he did not take it seriously. And he had asked his master about the Moon Empress disciple's age and knew that Lin Yuan was only 17 or 18 years old. The strength of the Moon Empress disciple was roughly the same, and it was never the phase quality or grade that stopped the Moon Empress disciple. To the Moon Empress disciple, the phase grade and quality were often the limit that they could withstand. What really stopped the Moon Empress disciple was the Spirit Chi Professional's grade. The increase in a Spirit Chi Professional's grade had a lot to do with age. The 17 or 18-year-old Lin Yuan and the 23 or 24-year-old Zhong Zhe were at least one grade apart in terms of grade. Even if Lin Yuan used the Starlight Jitan's pollen, there were other ways to break through the grade 1 phase limit. As a C-rank Spirit Chi Professional, he possessed a Diamond/Fantasy breed Fey. It could not erase the huge gap in spiritual power between a C-rank Spirit Chi Professional and a Pinnacle B-rank Spirit Chi Professional. Previously, and he had thought that the Moon Empress disciple would become the champion of both the civil and martial arena, and that the Moon Empress had informed Chef Supreme in advance. In order for Lin Yuan to successfully obtain the prize of both the civil and martial arena, the Radiant Medal. After all, His Holiness's disciple had to fight for the position of Radiance Envoy. Otherwise, it would be no different from being a salted fish. But now Ankh admitted that he was wrong. He could unleash an attack that contained the aura of the world, even if it only contained the aura of the world power. Without the actual power of the world, it was enough to contend against Zhong Zhe. He might even be able to defeat Zhong Zhe with this attack. And he hurriedly shouted, Mountain Suppressing Kuei, Cast Mountains Roar. Feet of the Earth Vein. Dry Land Solidification and Exclusive Skill Forbidden Fruit of Earth. Then, use the Mountain Range Defense skill and sacrifice the mountains to stop these crows. After instructing the Mountain Suppressing Kuei, and he shouted at the awakening hibernation drake that had already crawled out of the purple cocoon. Nightmare Drake, use water and earth transformation. Try your best to convert the water element in the sea into earth element. Then, I'll create the image of awakening hibernation and use the stone repelling body skill on the mountains summoned by Yu Kuei. And he had already displayed the strongest defense that he could achieve by relying on the mountain suppressing Kuei and the awakening hibernation drake. As the mountain suppressing Kuei leaped onto the island and let out a roar, nearly 70 towering mountains surged out of the entire island. The formation of these mountains completely destroyed the island's terrain. There was not even a place to land on the entire island. Lu Jie, the mother of Bloodbath, Yindai, Zhang Cheng, Sun Jiang, and the other spectators had a place to watch the battle after the elder behind, and he shattered a mountain. These towering mountains could not stop the 28 dark crows that Lin Yuan controlled. The dark crows could easily pass through the gaps between the mountains. However, after checking the mountain-suppressing Kuei and the awakening hibernation drake's true data, Lin Yuan knew that these mountains were the mountain-suppressing Kuei's defense. Lin Yuan ordered the 28 dark crows to attack each of the mountains. The 2,000-meter-tall mountains were like paper in the face of the dark crows that were smaller than a palm. After each dark crow completely shattered the entire mountain, it would fly to the next mountain. And he did not panic at all, but his brows were tightly knitted. And his heart was filled with deep confusion. Just now, and he had ordered the mountain-suppressing Kuei to use the mountain's roar, but no mountains had risen from the sea. At that time, and he had thought that the sea was too deep, and the mountain-suppressing Kuei had not used his full strength. However, the mountain-suppressing Kuei had clearly used his full strength, so why were there still no mountains emerging from the bottom of the sea? This is really fucking strange. The mountain-suppressing Kuei could not display his strength to the greatest extent by relying on the earth elements on this island. In fact, when he had just landed on this island, Lu Jie had already given the Insect Queen 2 orders. He had ordered the Insect Queen to control the reef lice to use the calcium hardening and aura isolation to reinforce the bottom of the sea. Otherwise, the earth elements at the bottom of the sea might really be attracted by the mountain-suppressing Kuei and summon thousands of mountains in the sea. Under the effect of the earth vein transformation, the activity of the earth elements contained in the entire island had suddenly doubled. The mountain-suppressing Kuei, which originally only had 1 foot, had grown a foot that was completely condensed by the earth elements. The mountain-suppressing Kuei ran with both feet and headed straight for the forbidden fruit of earth that had condensed on the ground not far away. Seeing that the mountain-suppressing Kuei had swallowed the forbidden fruit that had condensed on the ground, and he shouted at the mountain-suppressing Kuei again. Mountain-suppressing Kuei continuously used the mountain's roar. Following in his order, the mountains on the island surged out like gophers. The mountains that had appeared earlier had not been shattered by the Dark Crow's attack. The new mountains had already pushed up the old mountains. The moment these mountains were pushed up, they blossomed with a thick earthy yellow light. Finally, these mountains turned into phantom images and stacked on the mountain-suppressing Kuei's body. Even though the mountain-suppressing Kuei had nearly 100 layers of mountains on his body, he was still diligently summoning the mountains. More illusions of the mountains stacked on top of his body to increase his defense. At the same time, more mountains were attacking Lin Yuan, who was holding the sacred sword. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan immediately used Blackie's exclusive skill, Spirit Chi Burst. He raised his hand and blasted the mountains that had risen up from the ground under his feet and in front of him. Blackie was now Diamond Eye/Fantasy Eye. Given Blackie's strength, even if the mountain-suppressing Kuei was just an ordinary Fey, Blackie would not be able to defeat it. Blackie would definitely not be able to defeat it. Moreover, the mountain-suppressing Kuei was a Fey with the bloodline of desolation. However, the power of the exclusive skill, Spirit Chi Burst, did not depend entirely on Blackie's strength. It also depended on the purity of the Spirit Chi used. Chapter 1308. The higher the purity of the Spirit Chi, the stronger the attack power of the Spirit Essence Burst. The purity of Lin Yuan's Spirit Chi was higher than that of a Class 5 Creation Master. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was the purest man-made Spirit Chi in the world. The extremely pure Spirit Chi gathered at one point and burst out with power, allowing Lin Yuan to shatter the mountains beneath his feet and in front of him. Facing the mountains around him, Lin Yuan repeatedly swung his right fist. Under Lin Yuan's right fist, not a single mountain that rose from the ground could pose a problem to him. Just as Lin Yuan was swinging his right fist to shatter the mountains, he suddenly felt a huge repulsive force coming from the mountains in front of him. This repulsive force prevented Lin Yuan from continuing to smash his right fist on the mountains. However, the repulsive force coming from the mountains didn't trouble Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan only needed to lift his leg and kick up a piece of rock. He would first use the Spirit Essence Burst to bombard the rock. With the rock as the node, he would use the Spirit Essence Burst's power to counteract the mountain's repulsive force. Then he would use his right fist to smash the mountain. Given Lin Yuan's skills, these were just small tricks that could be easily done. The island's earth elements had entered an extremely active state. As the waking hibernating drake turned the water elements into earth elements, the island's surface area had a slight tendency to expand. At this moment, 28 dark crows had already flown in front of the mountain suppression drake. They circled around and attacked the mountain suppression drake. Every dark crow's attack could shatter dozens of mountain phantoms around Yukuei's body and add a withered mark to the outermost mountain phantoms. Each withered mark would be accompanied by the disappearance of a dark crow. At the same time, these withered marks wouldn't disappear when the mountain shadows were destroyed by the dark crows. Instead, they would automatically attach to the next layer of the mountain shadows. As the 14 dark crows disappeared, the withered effect that could only be produced by gathering all 14 withered marks was triggered. The withered effect immediately caused the layers of mountain shadows around the mountain suppression drake to wither. The withered mountain shadows were like the sorrowful wails of the earth, splashing up a decaying mist. Anha was alarmed and quickly commanded the waking hibernating drake to ride the split waking hibernating statue in front of the remaining 14 dark crows. At the same time, he urged the nightmare dragon to use its skill, hibernation change, to use the raven's attacks to replenish the nightmare dragon's HP. At the same time, and he also got the waking hibernation nightmare dragon to use its exclusive skill, body of earth attraction, to release the strongest repulsive force. He then ordered the nightmare hibernation drake to activate dragon body liberation, gathering all the energy in its body onto its horn. He was prepared to use all his strength to attack the remaining Dark Crows after the Awakening statue was destroyed by the Dark Crows. Apparently, Ankh was ready to abandon the Awakening Drake. He used the Waking Drake as a shield to block the Dark Crow's attack for Yukue. And his approach was right. After all, the Diamond X/Fantasy Vision Yukue's comprehensive strength was much stronger than the Diamond X/Fantasy 4 Gen Yukue. Although the Awakening Hibernation Nightmare Dragon was better at attacking than Gen Yukue's skill, Mountain Ripper combined with Mountain Ripper 9 Shocks, was not any weaker than the Awakening Hibernation Nightmare Dragon's attack. However, and he had obviously underestimated the power of the remaining 14 Dark Crows. A Dark Crow rammed into the Awakening Hibernation image, directly shattering a small part of the Awakening Hibernation image. However, the Waking Hibernating Drake behind the Waking Hibernating statue was fully executing its exclusive skill, Earth Attraction Body. A massive repulsive force exploded with the Waking Hibernating Drake as the origin, pushing everything in the opposite direction of the Waking Hibernating Drake. The powerful repulsive force even compacted the island's soil by close to 3 meters. This massive repulsive force undoubtedly affected the remaining 13 Dark Crows. However, after paying the price of 3 Dark Crows, the Waking Hibernating statue was completely destroyed. The remaining 10 Dark Crows attacked the Waking Hibernating Drake's main body. Upon seeing this, the Waking Hibernating Drake didn't immediately unleash Dragon Body Liberation and the attack condensed on its horn. Instead, it used the Awakening Hibernating statue's life force to attack the remaining Dark Crows. When 4 Dark Crows rammed into the Waking Hibernating Drake's body, the Waking Hibernating Drake unleashed Dragon Body Liberation. The terrifying white light collided with the 5 Dark Crows and produced a violent explosion. In the end, the severely injured Waking Hibernating Drake fell from the sky and onto the ground that it had been suppressing. From the smoke produced by the explosion, 3 Dark Crows drilled out. Under normal circumstances, these 3 Dark Crows should have been attacking the Waking Hibernating Drake. However, since Lin Yuan and he were just sparring, there was no need to harm the other party's Fae. The Dark Crows were all under Lin Yuan's control, so he left the Waking Hibernating Drake with one breath. Seeing that there were still 3 Dark Crows, and he quickly raised his hand and summoned a nearly 20-meter-long, 10-meter-tall earthen yellow lizard. This earthen yellow lizard's back was covered with a thick layer of crystal-like armor. It was obvious that the new Fae that he had summoned had an extremely powerful defense. However, after he summoned this lizard, he didn't have the time to issue any instructions to it. He could only let this lizard use its body to block the 3 Dark Crows that were attacking the mountain-suppressing Drake. Lin Yuan took a deep breath. After executing a few punches with the Spirit Pure Burst, he was only left with half of the Spirit Chi in his body. As a C-rank Spirit Chi professional, he didn't have enough Spirit Chi to fight with a B-rank Spirit Chi professional. Lin Yuan silently used Blackie's Spirit Injection on himself. Then, he raised his right fist and sprinted toward the mountain-suppressing Drake. The 3 Dark Crows blasted on the lizard Fae that he had just summoned. Just 2 Dark Crows were enough to severely injure the giant lizard. Just as the lizard was facing 2 Dark Crows and the 3rd Dark Crow was about to crash into the lizard, the 3rd Dark Crow changed its direction and went past the giant lizard, crashing toward he. Upon seeing the situation, he had no choice but to order the mountain-suppressing Drake to block in front of him. At that moment, Lin Yuan, who was close to the lizard, leaped and smashed his right fist on the back of the heavily injured giant lizard. Subsequently, Lin Yuan used the giant lizard's back as a node and leaped high, injecting most of the Spirit Chi in his body into his right fist. He swung his right fist again and smashed at the mountain-suppressing Drake, which was defending the last Dark Crow with all its strength. After that punch, Lin Yuan's strength was released and he landed behind he. The moment he landed, Lin Yuan's left elbow neatly hit he's temple. The gale from the elbow blew up the hair on he's forehead, causing him to break out in cold sweat. He's newly summoned giant lizard Fae fell to the ground after getting punched by Lin Yuan. Although the mountain-suppressing Drake was not lightly beaten by Lin Yuan's punch, it was far from serious injuries. What really injured the mountain-suppressing Drake was the last Dark Crow's attack. However, the mountain-suppressing Drake still had the strength to fight, but he had already lost this battle. And his life was now tied to Lin Yuan's elbow. Tomorrow is a big scene. I hope the mother of Bloodbath can pull through. Small preview. I immediately went home after work and stayed up all night writing until now. My chest is stuffy. Requesting recommendation tickets, monthly trouble. Button is too busy at the end of the year. Please forgive me. End of this chapter. Chapter 1309. And he, who had suddenly regained his senses, felt that Lin Yuan's entire body was filled with the word evil. And he, who had fought with so many spirit chi professionals, had never seen a spirit chi professional like Lin Yuan's fighting style. Lin Yuan looked like a berserk humanoid fae. The outcome was decided, and he flipped his hand, grabbed the rainbow ball of light, and threw it at Lin Yuan. He then said with a complicated expression, "You win this time. You win this time, but if you use a sacred source life form, you won't necessarily win." Lin Yuan raised his eyebrows and caught the sacred source life form that he tossed over with a chuckle. He chuckled and said, "Unless you can block the power of the world again, you will still lose if you use the sacred source life form." With that, Lin Yuan walked toward Lu Jie, the killer butterfly, and the mother of Bloodbath with the sacred source life form. After thinking for a while, Lin Yuan threw the sacred source life form to the killer butterfly. The killer butterfly was stunned by Lin Yuan's action. However, it did not exchange any pleasantries with Lin Yuan. It happily accepted the sacred source life form. The killer butterfly felt as though it had married a rich second-generation heir. More importantly, this rich second-generation heir's looks were off the charts. It could not get enough of him. More importantly, this rich second-generation heir's father treats me even better. How embarrassing! Lu Jie and the mother of Bloodbath were used to Lin Yuan's generosity in distributing sacred source life forms to the people in the manor. However, this scene almost made Indai's eyeballs pop out of their sockets. Indai was greedy. How could an insect species fae that had just become a creation breed obtain a sacred source life form? How could she deserve it? I am the mighty sea monarch. Why haven't I found a single sacred source life form to contract after becoming an immortal for such a long time? Envious and jealous, Indai frantically swung the fins on her horn and slapped the ground with her fishtail, constantly venting the jealousy in her heart. The elder, Sun Jiang, and Zhang Cheng looked at Lin Yuan with solemn eyes. The three people's solemn eyes were filled with disbelief. This was not the first time Sun Jiang had seen Lin Yuan fight with someone. However, when he saw Sun Jiang again, he was still amazed by Lin Yuan's peculiar attack method. Sun Jiang also realized that the 28 crows that Lin Yuan had conjured with the sacred source life form were much stronger than when he had dueled with Zhong Zhe in the civil and martial arenas. It turned out that this amazing young man had made such great progress in just a little more than a month. What a heaven-gifted genius! Sun Jiang wasn't the only one who noticed that his raven's withering strike had become stronger. As a holy sword wielder, Lin Yuan naturally noticed this as well. He had yet to use Morbius' exclusive skill, Pure Land of Bliss, to absorb the golden bead condensed by the creation earth vein. Recently, Lin Yuan had not let the princess use source power to enhance the Dark Death World. However, the Dark Crow Withering Strike's attack power had increased. The only change from a month ago was that the princess had increased her star level from 2 stars to 3 stars. It seemed that as princess's star increased, the damage of her Holy Sword mode sword skills would also become stronger. Moreover, the increase was not small. During the fight with Zhong Zhe, the Dark Crow Withering Strike's power was equivalent to the full power attack of a Pinnacle Myth 2 Fae. Now, the Dark Crow Withering Strike's power had obviously entered the early stages of Myth 3, and his face flushed when he heard Lin Yuan's words. If not for the awakening hibernation drake, the suppressing mountain kuei and the flowing earth drill lizard would have suffered serious injuries. And he really wanted to fight with Lin Yuan again to see who was bragging. That attack of yours was clearly your trump card. I don't believe that you can unleash another attack of such power. At that moment, the elder was behind He. Seeing He's expression, the elder gently patted He's shoulder to comfort him. And he glanced at the old man beside him, then at Lin Yuan, who was tossing the sacred source life form he had just given to the others, and snorted coldly. He snorted and said, "Grandpa Gu, help me assess the island's losses. We will compensate them on the spot and play with them. We will leave immediately." An awkward expression appeared on the elder's face. "You and Lin Yuan fought on this island, and it has completely become a deserted island. Even if there were star web streamers who came to this island to film for survival, they would likely starve to death on the island." Thinking about what the island had been like when they had first arrived, the elder felt that it would be better for He to compensate with an island. However, looking at He's expression, the elder did not say anything in the end. As He's path protector, the elder could not leave He's side when Dai, the Sea Empress, was present. Therefore, the elder waved his hand, and two lambs, which were obviously in camouflage, appeared beside the elder. After the old man instructed the two lambs ran in two different directions of the island. He assessed the island's losses. And his eyes abruptly turned cold when he saw Dai looking at him with a gloating expression on her face. The elder behind he also looked at Dai with an unfriendly expression, but Dai did not care. Dai turned to the two sea kings beside her and said, "The two of you don't have to be so nervous." Dai turned to speak to the two sea kings beside her. His Majesty's disciple represents His Majesty's face. He can't go back on his word after losing the duel. When the two sea kings heard Dai's words, they knew that Dai's words were not meant for them. Instead, he said it to An. Therefore, the two sea kings immediately chimed in and cooperated with Dai to continue the conversation. Hearing Dai's words, he was infuriated, but he had no good words to refute her. In the end, he snorted coldly and shouted at Dai, "You have to pay for the losses on this island. What are you so proud of?" Hearing this, Dai looked at He arrogantly and said, "It's just the resources of an island. This emperor can easily lose them. It's not a big deal at all. This emperor is waiting for the collaboration with the Moon Empress disciple." When he heard Dai's words, he was so angry that his liver almost exploded. And he was a sensible man. Since he couldn't beat Dai with words, and he had also lost the bet, it wouldn't be good for him to attack Dai. And he simply ignored Dai. Lin Yuan thought to himself as he looked at the happy face of the predator butterfly. "I wonder if the sacred source life form that the predator butterfly obtained is suitable for the predator butterfly." After exploring the swamp world, Lin Yuan thoroughly understood how sacred source life forms came about. In fact, compared to casually giving the predator butterfly a sacred source life form, perhaps hunting a totem for the heaven-slaughtering butterfly that was compatible with the world of laws the heaven-slaughtering butterfly grasped would be even more compatible. However, it was not easy to hunt an apostle with medium or weak power of faith and a sacred source body in a dimensional world. Apostles had a variety of abilities. Even if he encountered hundreds of apostles, none of them would be suitable for the predator butterfly. Chapter 13:10. Moreover, it was not good to keep dragging the slaughter butterfly's sacred source life form. Among the 3 Emperor-class experts in Sky City, the mother of Bloodbath and Endless Summer had obtained sacred source life forms. Since the slaughter butterfly had not, it was inevitable that he would overthink. However, in Lin Yuan's future selection of sacred source life forms, especially when it came to choosing a second sacred source life form for himself, Lin Yuan would definitely search for an existence that was compatible with him in the swamp world before carrying out the contract. Morbius had once again fallen into a deep slumber because of that strange plant seed. Lin Yuan now knew that Princess was an existence formed by the fusion of 2 sacred source life forms. He wondered if Morbius would be able to fuse the 2 sacred source life forms again after it woke up. Suddenly, a majestic vitality and water element aura surged from the bottom of the sea toward the surface. A total of 13 whale cries rang out solemnly. Upon hearing these 13 whale cries, Lin Yuan's eyes lit up. These whale cries were unique to the island whale embryos when they were formed. The whale cries were the strongest when the island whale embryos were just formed. Every few hours, the island whale embryos would let out another cry. This was also why human spirit chi professionals could find the island whale embryos when exploring the distant sea. If not for this characteristic of the island whale embryos, it would be like searching for a needle in a haystack in the vast sea. Perhaps the island whale's valuation would be more than 10 times higher than the current valuation. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan took out a gold-green oxygen sea anemone and prepared to go into the sea to personally see the situation of this large-scale whale fall. Upon seeing that Lin Yuan was about to go into the sea, the mother of Bloodbath suddenly recalled what had happened outside Indigo Azure City. Lin Yuan had gone into the sea alone and encountered danger in the sea. The mother of Bloodbath's expression changed, and it hurriedly reached out to stop Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan, I'll go into the sea first to see the situation. You can go in after I'm sure there's no danger in the sea. Yin Dai, who was walking toward Lin Yuan, hurriedly replied when she heard the mother of Bloodbath's words. This sea region is in the Radiance Continent's territory. Due to the influence of the Radiance Sea Treaty, ordinary marine species will be exceptionally careful in this sea region. In addition, my territory is 200 nautical miles away, so there can't be any danger in this sea region. You can go down directly. I will also go down with you to see if I can be of any help. Upon hearing that, the mother of Bloodbath ignored Yin Dai and stubbornly flew in the direction of the whale's cry. Just as the mother of Bloodbath hovered above the surface of the sea and was about to plunge to the bottom of the sea, a sudden change occurred. A long black thorn suddenly shot out from the surface of the sea. The black spike was so fast that it did not give the mother of Bloodbath any chance to react. The black spike pierced through the mother of Bloodbath. This black thorn had the ability to pierce through the mother of Bloodbath's body, but it stopped abruptly inside. Then, the black thorn bloomed like an iron tree. Thousands of spikes appeared and directly pierced the mother of Bloodbath's body from the inside out into a broken sieve. It made the mother of Bloodbath look like a hedgehog that had curled up into a ball. This happened too suddenly. The Void Shadow Demon didn't even have time to react. Even the old man behind and he couldn't react. By the time the flame-stepping smoke beast reacted, the black thorn had already pierced into the mother of Bloodbath's body. Lin Yuan's eyes turned red as he looked at the mother of Bloodbath. The old man glanced at he and then gritted his teeth as he commanded the flame-stepping smoke beast to bring the mother of Bloodbath back to the island. The moment the flame-stepping smoke beast came into contact with the mother of Bloodbath's body, 2 black thorns shot out from the sea that had turned dark red at some point. The flame-stepping smoke beast's strength had reached the peak of immortal, unlike the mother of Bloodbath, which was only a myth-breed fae. Coupled with the unforeseen event that had just happened, the flame-stepping smoke beast, which had arrived above the sea region, was extremely focused. Thus, the moment the 2 thorns shot over, the flame-stepping smoke beast stepped lightly with its feet. The green flames under its feet attacked the 2 black thorns. When the flame-stepping smoke beast brought the mother of Bloodbath back to the island, the 2 green flames that were entangled with the black thorns had already been extinguished. But after the green flames were extinguished, the black thorns that had been burned by the green flames didn't disappear. There was still a small portion of them lingering above the sea region. The flame-stepping smoke beast carefully placed the mother of Bloodbath on the island and then spoke to the old man in a serious tone. "Old Goo, the fae that shot out the black thorns is stronger than me." The flame-stepping smoke beast had just finished speaking when a woman in a dark red robe appeared above the sea. After the woman appeared above the sea, she flung her dark red robe. A pair of slender and powerful long legs were revealed under the robe. The shoes that the woman was stepping on had a high bulge that looked like a shark's tail. However, the bulge was much sharper than the tip of a shark's tail. The woman stared at everyone on the island, and her gaze lingered on the old man and the flame-stepping smoke beast for a while. Then, the woman stretched lazily and casually tossed a black thorn in her hand. Her face was filled with a playful expression as if she was facing her prey. Behind the woman stood a total of 7 sea kings, and they all had an aura similar to the woman in the dark red robe. It was obvious that these 7 sea kings should be related to this woman in the dark red robe. When Indai saw the black thorns being shot out, her entire back was drenched in cold sweat. Indai couldn't be more familiar with these black thorns as she had escaped death many times before. Indai's eyes were filled with fear as she shouted angrily, "Mermaid Edge, why are you here? Why are you here?" The woman in the dark red robe, who was called Mermaid Edge, didn't even look at Indai, and her tone was full of indifference. "Of course, I'm here to kill you. You're just a Silver Sash race member that has just reached adulthood. How can you enjoy the gift of this large-scale whale fall? Don't think that I didn't notice when you spent so much effort to lure the 3 old whales that were migrating in my sea region. I didn't expect that after you were almost killed by me at the Class 5 Waterworld Dimensional Rift, you had mixed with humans. These humans are really unlucky. It'll be hard for them not to die after getting attached to you." When Indai heard that, it was no longer as simple as cold sweat seeping out of her body. Indai's heart chilled, and she knew that Mermaid Edge really wanted to kill her. Previously, Mermaid Edge definitely hadn't killed her because she had already planned to take over this large-scale whale fall before making a move on her. She looked at everyone on the island, especially in He, who had a grave expression, and Lin Yuan, who was crouching in front of the Mother of Bloodbath with bloodshot eyes. There was also Lu Jie, who was wearing the Spirit Guard standard mask and whose face couldn't be seen clearly, but his body was surging with grief, anger, and killing intent. Indai planned to borrow the power of these 3 disciples to see if she could scare off Mermaid Edge. Chapter 13:11. As long as the mermaid was scared off, Indai decided to immediately flee to the ends of the world with her 2 sea kings. As long as she wanted to hide in the vast ocean, Sharkshine might not be able to find her. Thus, Indai shouted sternly, "Do you know who you are attacking? Do you want to tear up the Huihai Treaty and cause a war between the Radiants and the Sea Race?" Upon hearing that, the dark red-robed woman looked at Indai contemptuously and said, "The royal race has become the weakest of the 5 lower races. In the end, the royal clan has become the weakest of the 5 lower clans. Even their eyesight has become shallow. My sea race covers the entire main world, and 30% of the land is shared by humans and symbiotic phase. 70% of the ocean is exclusively enjoyed by the sea race. The resources on the land are of no use to my sea race. The Huihai Treaty was signed because the sea race didn't want to cause unnecessary trouble. As long as I, Sharkshine, have the ability to make everyone stay here and not let the news spread. Who else knows that I, Sharkshine, did this? The Radiance faction should look into you, the stinky fish that is closest to this territory and this sea region. If you die and disappear in the sea region, the Radiance faction will naturally think that you fled in fear of punishment. By then, the royal race will be pushed to pay the price for breaking the Huihai Treaty." Upon hearing that, Indai took a deep breath. She didn't expect that Sharkshine was not only scheming against her but also the royal race behind her. If not for Lin Yuan, and he and the others would have come to this island to compete with her for the resources of the large whale fall. Perhaps when the island whale embryo had just formed and she was about to check it out, she would have been locked on by the black spikes. By then, the black spikes would not have pierced the myth-breed Fae beside the Moon Empress disciple but herself. However, Indai had just become an adult and didn't want to die. She thought of He, Lin Yuan, and Lu Jie's identities and looked at the old man behind He. Indai summoned her courage and shouted loudly, "Sharkshine, you are only at level 8 immortal. The human old man's Fae beside me is already at peak immortal, and its quality is higher than yours. Even if it can fight above its rank in the sea region, it has an advantage over this old man. But if this old man wants to run, you won't be able to stop him. At that time, the Radiance faction will know that all of this was done by you, Mermaid Mang. Even if I die, you won't be able to frame me." Hearing this, the disdain and mockery in Mermaid Mang's eyes became even stronger. "Indai, do you think I'm as stupid as you? Unfortunately, I just reached the 9th level of the immortal realm not long ago. Body like glass, immortal body completion." After it finished speaking, A few dark red tentacle-like aquatic plants suddenly shot out from the mermaid's palm. The mermaid flipped its hand, and the seaweed that gushed out of its palm fell into the blood-red seawater. At the moment the seaweed fell into the water, the aura of the Ocean Emperor at the peak of Immortal Realm burst out. Shark Ray said softly, "Weave and sip, scarlet tentacle." Under the soft cry of the Shark Ray, red seaweed that was nearly 10,000 meters tall suddenly grew in the sea. Like wriggling tentacles, the scarlet seaweed stretched out and intertwined with each other. Finally, it was sealed. These red seaweeds seemed to have turned the sea into a dark red theater. The surging red waves were like an ode to the theater in the sea. It eulogized the drama of death that was about to unfold in the theater in the sea. The area covered by the red seaweed was like a forbidden area, and its aura was completely isolated from the outside world. The old man behind and he had a grave expression. Against a peak Immortal Realm Ocean Emperor, even if he used all his strength to break through, he might not be able to send and he out unharmed from the hands of a peak Immortal Realm Ocean Emperor. Moreover, this peak Immortal Realm Ocean Emperor had taken the initiative to use his sacred source life form. The old man also had a sacred source life form. Therefore, even if the old man was not a creation master, with the senses of his 6-star sacred source life form, the old man could also use this to find out the Imperial Mermaid race's sacred source life form's star level. What troubled the old man was that, according to the aura of the sacred source life form, the aura of Shark Ray's scarlet tentacle was stronger than his own sacred source life form. This meant that if Shark Ray's scarlet tentacle wasn't a peak 6-star existence, it would be a 7-star existence. Shark Ray was stronger than him in the sea, and his sacred source life form's star level was higher than his. The current situation was too serious. Using brute force was definitely not going to work. The old man looked at Shark Ray, who had a playful expression, and said in a cold voice, "Look at you. You should be a member of the Imperial Mermaid race, one of the 8 Ocean Empire clans. You are considered an expert among the Imperial Mermaid race. Compared to the other ocean clans, you should know the truth about the Radiant Sea Treaty. What you just said is completely different from what the Imperial Mermaid race's patriarch said when they signed the Radiant Sea Treaty. The person in front of you is young Master He, His Holiness Eternal Lamp's disciple. If you step back now, I can pretend that nothing has happened." Shark Ray's expression changed, and he looked deeply at Indai. He did not understand why Indai was with His Holiness Radiance's disciple. Shark Ray frowned and muttered to himself, as if he was weighing the gains and losses in his heart. On the other side, the Void Shadow Demon had already left Lin Yuan's shadow. Lin Yuan, Lu Jie, the slaughtering sky butterfly, and the Void Shadow Demon surrounded the Mother of Bloodbath, whose body was covered in spikes. Their eyes were terrifyingly red. The moment the flame-stomped smoke beast brought the Mother of Bloodbath back to the island, Lin Yuan placed his hand on the Mother of Bloodbath's wrist. Lin Yuan circulated his spiritual power and used pure spirit chi to probe the Mother of Bloodbath's body. The more he probed, the more flustered he became. Lin Yuan found that the black spikes that had burst out of the Mother of Bloodbath's body had almost crushed the Mother of Bloodbath's body. As a creation master, Lin Yuan had seen too many Fays on the verge of death. However, he had never encountered such a serious injury like the Mother of Bloodbath's. It was not an exaggeration to say that the Mother of Bloodbath's body had completely turned into minced meat. It could be said that the Mother of Bloodbath was on the verge of death and was relying on its last breath to hold on. Lin Yuan crazily undid the vitality imprint on his forehead. The surging vitality from Lin Yuan's palm flowed freely along the Mother of Bloodbath's wrist and into its body. However, this large amount of vitality with the exclusive skill intermittent vitality did not improve the Mother of Bloodbath's physical condition. The Mother of Bloodbath's origin vitality was still rapidly depleting. However, the majestic vitality injected made the Mother of Bloodbath's numb body gain some strength. The Mother of Bloodbath tried to speak, but after trying for a long time, it found that it no longer had the strength to make a sound. The Mother of Bloodbath took a deep look at Lin Yuan. Its eyes, which had always been cold, were now filled with softness and relief, as well as some loneliness and reluctance. End of this chapter. Chapter 13:12. In order to speak, the mother of Bloodbath shed its human form and turned into its original Fey form. The mother of Bloodbath had the appearance of the red crystal spider with spiky hair when Lin Yuan had first met it. The mother of Bloodbath lifted its spider leg with difficulty and used all its strength to pull out a spike stuck in its throat. She spoke weakly with that strange yet pleasant voice that Lin Yuan was used to hearing. Lin Yuan, I finally feel like I'm your Tao protector now. The mother of Bloodbath's words caused Lin Yuan's red eyes to instantly become misty. In life, the most terrifying thing was the separation of family and friends. Especially people like Lin Yuan, who could create all kinds of resources and lead the younger generation. Lin Yuan did not know how many Feys with damaged roots he had healed, but he found that the exclusive skill he had always relied on was so powerless with the mother of Bloodbath. Even though he had activated Life Imprint, a sense of powerlessness spread in Lin Yuan's heart. Is the mother of Bloodbath really going to leave me today? Leave the return from faraway mansion. Leave Sky City. Return to the netherworld? The mist in Lin Yuan's eyes began to condense into drops, and his eyes became a little dazed amidst the extreme sorrow. Suddenly, Lin Yuan thought of something, and his eyes flashed with a ray of hope. Lin Yuan hurriedly pulled out the blood brew grapevine from the Diamond Fey storage box and said to the mother of Bloodbath anxiously, Mother of Bloodbath, your roots are damaged, and you urgently need blood energy to maintain them. Mother of Bloodbath, your origin has been damaged, and you urgently need blood energy to maintain it. The mother of Bloodbath glanced at the Diamond X/Legend blood brew grapevine in Lin Yuan's hand. The mother of Bloodbath glanced at the Diamond X/Legend blood brew grapevine in Lin Yuan's hand. Recalling the Platinum 3/Elite blood brew grapevine that Lin Yuan had traded for in the Indigo Azure Sea Market, the mother of Bloodbath knew how much Lin Yuan had sacrificed to nurture the blood brew grapevine. It also knew why Lin Yuan could give it a bunch of blood brew grapes. The mother of Bloodbath looked at Lin Yuan, who was anxiously handing it the blood brew grapevine, and the corners of its lips curled up into a young smile. At that moment, the hazy feelings in the mother of Bloodbath's heart suddenly became clear. The mother of Bloodbath opened its mouth, but it ultimately did not say the feelings it had just learned. When feelings were first born, they didn't know what it felt like. But now that he understood, he also knew that some feelings could only be stopped between the lips and teeth, covered by time. The mother of Bloodbath knew that its current situation wasn't as simple as a damaged origin. Even if he absorbed the pure blood energy contained within the blood brew grapevine, it would be of no use. As a heaven and earth Fey, the blood brew grapevine was about to reach fruition under Lin Yuan's hands. Since he was destined to die, there was no need for him to drag someone down with him. Seeing that the mother of Bloodbath was not absorbing the blood brew grapevine, Lin Yuan became anxious. Lin Yuan immediately took out all the spirit chi crystals he had and crushed them. As a huge amount of extremely pure spirit chi was injected into the mother of Bloodbath's body, the dying mother of Bloodbath felt its spirit shake. Lin Yuan lost control of his emotions and shouted at the mother of Bloodbath anxiously. Mother of Bloodbath, activating the Sky Corona Jade Spider bloodline is your only chance. I don't want you to die. I want you to live. The blood energy of all the Oceanids here will become the basis for your transformation into a Sky Corona Jade Spider. After saying that, Lin Yuan stood up. He looked straight at the pondering Shark Mang and said in a cold voice, I want you to die. I want you to die. As Lin Yuan stood up, the mother of Bloodbath looked at Lin Yuan's back with clear and gentle eyes. Lin Yuan's words, I don't want you to die. I want you to live, gave the mother of Bloodbath the conviction to live on no matter what. With such a huge amount of pure spirit chi entering its body, the mother of Bloodbath decisively drew on this pure spirit chi. It went to touch the forbidden area that it had never dared to touch. This forbidden area was the Sky Corona Jade Spider bloodline that was hidden in the mother of Bloodbath's body. Shark Mang was originally thinking about what to do next. Should he follow the original plan to kill everyone and then shift the blame to Een Dai and the Imperial Mermaid clan behind her? Or should he retreat on his own and act as if nothing had happened like the old man had said? Shark Mang was very afraid that after he retreated and returned to the territory, the Radiance clan's long lamp crown would come looking for trouble. The Radiance clan might even use the Radiance Sea Treaty to affect the Imperial Mermaid clan's position among the top 3 of the Ocean Imperial 8 clans. With this thought, Shark Mang's killing intent grew stronger. At that moment, Shark Mang's thoughts were already infinitely close to killing everyone present. Lin Yuan's words, "I want you to die," directly ignited Shark Mang's killing intent. Shark Mang, whose killing intent was already set off, was completely unbridled and did not take the people present seriously. Who cared if the people present were His Holiness Hui Yao's disciples? Looking at Lin Yuan's appearance, Shark Mang smacked its lips with a sinister expression. Then, it revealed a frivolous smile. "You think you can kill this emperor? Why don't you take a good look at yourself? Hee, but you are very lucky, kid. Just based on your appearance, I have decided not to kill you. In the future, just wait to be locked in the deep sea by me and play games with my tentacles day and night." While speaking, Shark Mang waved its hand behind it. The Sea Kings behind Shark Mang all raised the black spikes in their hands and were ready to shoot at everyone. Since Lin Yuan said, "I want you to die," on his path protector, Gu En had a bad feeling. He knew that things were bad now. Gu En was ready to strike first and then summon his other pinnacle immortal Fae. Even if he sacrificed the lives of his 2 Fays to bring Lin Yuan and En He out safely. Under normal circumstances, as Anha's path protector, Gu En only needed to take En He away. If it was because of the identity of His Holiness's disciple, then Gu En should take En He, Lin Yuan, and Lu Jie away. In fact, Gu En choosing to take one more person in this situation was equivalent to increasing the risk that he and En He had to face. However, Gu En insisted on taking Lin Yuan and En He together because he did not want Lin Yuan to die. It would make the Moon Empress and His Holiness Lamp's misunderstanding even deeper. In this case, His Holiness Lamp would really have no face to face the Moon Empress in the future. But before Gu En could summon his other pinnacle immortal Fae, Gu En saw Lin Yuan's entire aura change. 12 amber water columns gushed out from under Lin Yuan's feet, and these water columns zigzagged and intertwined around Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan's entire body suddenly turned into an elemental state. With a light fishtail and wave-like long hair, Lin Yuan at this time was like a purebred mermaid that had been extinct for thousands of years in the ocean legend. Just when Gu En was ready to find out why Lin Yuan had such a change, a mighty young man with white hair and white armor appeared in front of Lin Yuan. End of this chapter. Chapter 1313. This wasn't the first time Bai Yen had seen Lin Yuan's elemental mermaid form. Back then, Bai Yen had seen Lin Yuan suddenly transform into an elemental mermaid. Coupled with the surging power of faith around Lin Yuan and the fact that he had turned his son, Bai Xian, into an apostle, Bai Yen was certain that Lin Yuan was a ruler. Later, Bai Yen received the ruler's treasure as a reward from Lin Yuan. The ruler's treasure allowed Bai Yen to understand how beneficial it was to be a ruler's subordinate. Bai Yen originally wanted to stay by Lin Yuan's side after becoming Lin Yuan's subordinate. But in the end, Lin Yuan let him take over that stinky scorpion's territory. During the time he took over the territory, Bai Yen worked tirelessly to increase his strength while doing his best to control the territory. He didn't want any powerful life forms to enter his territory and disturb Lin Yuan inside. For this, Bai Yen had personally killed a passing class 11-dimensional life form. Holding the ruler's treasure in his hand, Bai Yen could clearly feel the increase in his power of faith accumulation speed. Lin Yuan's treasure of ruler had increased Bai Yan's power of faith accumulation speed by 10%. This speed was something Bai Yen didn't even dare to dream of. If he could keep receiving Lin Yuan's ruler's treasure, he would be able to accumulate the power of faith that he had accumulated for 100 years in 90 years. It would take him 10 years less. With the ruler's treasure support, Bai Yen felt that he would be able to upgrade his power of faith to high-low in less than 100 years. At that time, Bai Yen would be able to obtain a new power of faith. This power of faith was called Seed of Faith. When the Seed of Faith blossomed, Bai Yen would have the opportunity to break through the limits of an apostle and become a ruler. Having personally experienced the benefits of water of faith, Bai Yen was determined to follow Lin Yuan and curry favor with him. Bai Yen decided to do this not only because Lin Yuan didn't look down on his mutant swamp crocodile origin. More importantly, Bai Yen felt that only by following Bai Lin Yuan's side would he have the opportunity to obtain a good future. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to make it in the Swamp East Circle. However, after Bai Yen decided to curry favor with Lin Yuan, he never had a suitable opportunity. Not long ago, a strange person who had lost his life but was still alive because of a parasite found him. He said that Lin Yuan was looking for him and wanted him to wait at a specific location. Bai Yen knew that his chance to curry favor with Lin Yuan had arrived. This wasn't Bai Yan's first time seeing Lin Yuan's elemental mermaid form. However, when he saw Lin Yuan's elemental mermaid appearance, Bai Yen was still very amazed. However, when it sensed the surging power of faith around Lin Yuan and the coldness in his eyes, it could not help but sigh. Bai Yan's heart tightened. He knew that Lin Yuan was angry. After realizing this, Bai Yen flew into a rage, and the aura within his body surged out. He really didn't know who had the guts to anger the Sovereign Lord. Bai Yen knelt on one knee under Lin Yuan's fishtail. In the face of Lin Yuan's sovereign body, Bai Yen did not have the slightest dignity of an expert. Bai Yen said in an exceptionally respectful tone, "Bai Yen is here. My lord, please instruct me." In fact, as soon as Lin Yuan had transformed into an elemental mermaid, everyone had looked at him in surprise. What followed was a deep intoxication. This included the Mother of Bloodbath, which was trying its best to sort out the pure spirit chi in its body and use it to activate the Sky Corona Jade Spider bloodline. It was no wonder that Lin Yuan had never used the body of faith in the main world. Even Lu Jie and the Mother of Bloodbath had not seen it before. Apart from Bai Yen, the only one present who had seen Lin Yuan in this state was the slaughtering sky butterfly. Yin Dai's heart had already risen to her throat, and she was very afraid that Shark Mang would suddenly attack and kill her. However, when it saw Lin Yuan in the elemental mermaid state, Shark Mang panicked and suddenly recalled the legend that its mother had told it when it was young. It was said that in the bouncing tides under the deep ocean, there lived mermaids who used waves as their hair and water as their bodies. These mermaids had looks that could topple the four seas, and they had voices that could calm the four seas with their singing. However, Yin Dai, who had grown up and understood the nature of the deep ocean, knew that legends were ultimately just legends. There was no such existence in the deep ocean. Yin Dai had even specially asked her mother, who had told her stories, about this. In the end, her mother had only said that this was a legend of the sea. Lin Yuan's current appearance gave Yin Dai a feeling that the legend had shown into reality. Shark Mang's gaze became increasingly greedy as it looked at the transformed Lin Yuan, and the desire in its eyes became increasingly obvious. Before everyone could be surprised by Lin Yuan's transformation, Bai Yan's appearance shocked everyone, especially Gu En. He had two peak immortal spirit items. The moment Bai Yan appeared, Gu En keenly discovered that Bai Yan's strength was not inferior to his. If Lin Yuan had a peak immortal expert, plus his own two peak immortal phase, he would definitely have the ability to escape from Shark Mang within he, Lin Yuan, and Lu Jie, the three disciples of His Majesty. Yin Dai and Shark Mang's expressions changed after Bai Yan appeared, but the changes in their expressions were completely opposite. Yin Dai's face revealed an ecstatic expression. Shark Mang's expression became serious. If it was just an ordinary peak immortal Fey, Shark Mang would not have been so nervous. In the sea, it was not difficult for a Sea Emperor to kill 3 Earth immortal Fays of the same level. However, since Bai Yan appeared, Shark Mang found that its control over the sea was no longer absolute. Because the white-haired youth that Lin Yuan had summoned also had an instinctive control over the water. This meant that this white-haired youth was also an aquatic Fey. Shark Mang hurriedly covered its face with its hands, and then the water and blood dual energy exploded from Shark Mang's body. Shark Mang immediately activated the immortal body of the rank 9 immortal state. Shark Mang's body clearly had the characteristics of 9 Fays, and a huge shark shadow appeared behind his back. This shark's body was blood red, and its gills and fins were covered with black thorns. As the shark phantom moved, the entire sea region was activated. At this moment, any random wave in the sea could reach a height of 10 meters. The sea immediately carried out a monstrous tsunami. If it was not for Guin's defense, the entire island would have been crushed by the waves. Just as Shark Mang was about to make the first move, an extremely cold shout echoed. Bai Yen, go kill all the living beings in the sky above this island. After you kill this creature, bring its corpses to me. Before Bai Yen could respond, Lin Yuan had already completely opened the shrine between his two souls. Lin Yuan had completely opened the shrine between his two souls and mobilized all the power of faith in his body. Chapter 13-14. Lin Yuan realized that in just 2 days, his power of faith had increased by more than 3 times. He had benefited a lot from the blood oath battle between the Sea of Bliss and the Miao family in the Beast Creation Garden. He poured all of the power of faith into the water lingering around him. Lin Yuan deliberately asked Bai Lan to use the water to isolate the power of faith. A huge amount of power of faith was contained in the water, turning the meandering water into dark amber crystal pillars. 12 dark amber crystal pillars filled with the power of faith hit Bai Yen, who had just gotten up. A huge amount of power of faith was injected into Bai Yan's body, and he immediately felt the changes on his totem. At this moment, Bai Yen was indescribably shocked. Although Bai Yen had not personally met the ruler of all beings had once descended into the Myriad Palace in Marsh East. He had spread the ruler's power and glory. Through the information obtained from the apostles in Marsh East, Bai Yen also understood the ruler's power. He knew that the ruler could transform into the ruler's body and gave the apostles the ruler's treasure. However, Bai Yen had never heard that a ruler could directly increase the power of faith in an apostle. A thought flashed through Bai Yan's mind. However, this fleeting thought caused Bai Yan's heart to surge incessantly. Could it be that Lin Yuan was not just a Samsara realm ruler, but a level above the ruler? Thinking of this, Bai Yen did not dare to continue thinking. Bai Yen was not sure if his thoughts were correct. Perhaps as a ruler, Lin Yuan's ability to inject the power of faith into other apostles was just his talent. But no matter what, he had to stay by Lin Yuan's side. It was right to lick Lin Yuan until he was satisfied. Bai Yen took a deep breath and responded to Lin Yuan with a fanatical and respectful tone. As you command, my lord. After saying that, Bai Yen rose into the air. Looking at the Sea King's spikes behind the mermaid, Bai Yen did not even dodge. Facing these black spikes, Bai Yen shook his body and transformed into a giant white crocodile that was about 3,000 meters long. The moment these black spikes pierced his body, Bai Yan's body seemed to turn into soft white mud. The moment these black spikes pierced his body, Bai Yan's body seemed to turn into soft white mud. He devoured all these black spikes. Finally, Bai Yen swung his tail, and the dozen or so black spikes that had been devoured by Bai Yan's body all grew at the end of his tail. Bai Yen swung his tail and viciously lashed at the Scarlet Tentacle Seaweed Theater. Bai Yen swung his tail with all his strength, and a huge hole appeared on the theater wall made of scarlet tentacle algae. Mermaid Mang's expression changed when he saw the scarlet tentacle algae being injured. He definitely wouldn't give Bai Yen another chance to destroy the scarlet tentacle algae. His scarlet tentacle kelp was not a combat-type sacred source life form. It was not that tough. The first function of the scarlet tentacle algae was to isolate aura. The second function was to absorb all the recently dead life forms within its range into the scarlet tentacle algae. Finally, through the refinement of the scarlet tentacle algae, it was transmitted into the contestant's body, enhancing the contestant's strength. The mermaid's rapid ascension to Immortal 9th stage was closely related to the sacred source life form, scarlet tentacle algae. The mermaid radiance enveloped this area of the sea for 2 reasons. Firstly, it was to prevent the news from getting out. Secondly, it wanted to borrow the energy within Gu En and Yin Dai's bodies to further enhance its own strength. Even if it couldn't break through to the immortal realm and achieve eternal realm, It would be good to strengthen its newly ascended immortal 9th stage quality. Shark Mang ordered the dozen sea kings behind him in a stern voice. All of you, activate the immortal body for me. Kill the people on this island for this emperor first. After giving the order to the sea kings behind him, Mermaid Mang charged at Bai Yen. As he charged, 3 black spikes shot out of Mermaid Mang's hands and turned into 3 black sharks. The 3 black sharks overlapped each other, and like 2 pairs of scissors, they fiercely slammed towards Bai Yen. He glanced at Gu En, who had just summoned a new peak immortal Fae and was commanding 2 peak immortal Faes to fight. He also looked at the few sea kings who were helpless against the people on the island. Some were even injured by Gu En's Faes. Mermaid Mang's eyes flashed with ruthlessness and decisiveness. He was useless if he couldn't help. Since he couldn't help in battle, he might as well help in other ways. Mermaid Mang's movement toward Bai Yen slowed down, and its body stopped in midair. Mermaid Mang touched the dark red skin on its forehead. Then, it pierced the dark red skin with its fingernail and let the blood drip down its face. At this moment, Mermaid Mang chanted softly. As Mermaid Mang chanted, the dozen sea kings who were fighting with Gu En all stopped in midair. The sea kings all had a horrified look on their faces. Mermaid Mang didn't give these sea kings a chance to beg for mercy. Mermaid Mark, return. As Mermaid Mang shouted, the immortal body of these sea kings quickly contracted. In the end, the dozen sea kings who were executing the immortal body all turned into a meatball. These meatballs that were transformed by these sea kings were brewing and compressing all the power within these sea kings. In the end, these meatballs each spat out a blood sword that shot toward Mermaid Mang. As these blood swords entered its body, Mermaid Mang's aura suddenly rose. Feeling the change in its strength, Mermaid Mang laughed loudly. Previously, I was only at immortal rank 9. Now that I'm at the pinnacle of immortal rank 9, who under the eternal realm can defeat me? Mermaid Mang's words made Gu En's expression suddenly change. However, Bai Yen, who had suffered 3 thorns and suffered minor injuries, had a completely disdainful expression on his face. Bitch, your smile is really unpleasant to hear. I took your 3 black thorns head-on without any defense, but the attack of these 3 black thorns isn't much. They didn't even pierce through my muscle layer. If this is all you have, why don't you obediently lie on the ground and let me crush you to death? After Mermaid Mang used some kind of ability or exclusive skill to end the sea kings beside him, Lin Yuan's brows furrowed tightly. Looking at the faint sunlight radiating from the Mother of Bloodbath's body, Lin Yuan knew that the Mother of Bloodbath had already triggered the Sky Corona Jade Spider bloodline hidden in its body. At this time, the Mother of Bloodbath urgently needed a huge amount of blood chi energy. Originally, Lin Yuan was already helpless with the Mother of Bloodbath's injuries. What made Lin Yuan suddenly think of a solution was the attributes of Mermaid Mang and the dozen sea kings behind him. As a member of the Imperial Mermaid Clan, one of the top 3 clans of the Sea Imperial 8 clans, Mermaid Mang's attributes were blood and water. The blood energy in blood-type phase was often more abundant than normal phase and could be absorbed more easily by phase of the same attribute. Therefore, Lin Yuan thought of using Mermaid Mang and the dozen sea kings behind him as a ladder to help the Mother of Bloodbath awaken the Sky Corona Jade Spider bloodline. Chapter 13-15. If it was a non-blood type Fae, even if Lin Yuan asked Bai Yen to kill it, the Mother of Bloodbath could not absorb it at all. The blood energy of those sea kings was currently gathered in Shark Ray's body. The battle would constantly consume the blood energy in Shark Ray's body. This was undoubtedly bad news for the Mother of Bloodbath. It might even cause the Mother of Bloodbath to not be able to rely on Shark Ray's blood energy to fully awaken the Sky Corona Jade Spider bloodline. Thinking of this, Lin Yuan hurriedly shouted at Bai Yen. Bai Yen, finish this battle quickly. Use your strongest attack to finish her off. When Bai Yen heard Lin Yuan's command, his expression immediately turned solemn, and he no longer talked nonsense with Shark Ray. Bai Yan's 3,000-meter-long crocodile body shone with holy light, and the totem above his left eye spun rapidly and finally turned into a black hole. Bai Yan appeared in midair in his sacred source body state. Bai Yan, who was in his sacred origin body, did not immediately attack the shark ray. At that moment, Bai Yan was excitedly guiding the power of faith that Lin Yuan had injected into his body. A large amount of power of faith gathered in the black hole above Bai Yan's left eye. Immediately after, an object that was beating like a heart appeared in the black hole above Bai Yan's left eye. At that moment, Bai Yan's aura, which was originally competing with Shark Ray, suddenly rose. A large amount of cloud chi gathered around Bai Yan, and the cloud chi constantly turned into a huge, ferocious crocodile head phantom. It was as if it wanted to devour everything in the world into its stomach. After sensing Bai Yan's aura, Shark Ray's expression turned extremely ugly. Bai Yan's aura made Shark Ray feel an indescribable pressure. It even gave Shark Ray the thought of immediately retreating. However, Shark Ray had a reason to retreat at that moment. After all, there was a disciple of Her Majesty here. If he retreated now, everything he had done would definitely spread throughout the Radiance sect. He had launched an attack in the Radiance sect's territorial waters, and his goal was to seize a large whale fall. If this matter spread, it would be seen as him unilaterally tearing up the Radiance Sea Treaty. That bitch Yin Dai was still alive. Yin Dai might have been ostracized by the Sea Emperor clan, and the Sea Emperor clan had declined. However, Yin Dai was a member of the Sea Emperor 8 clans, and she was recognized by all the Sea clans as the Sea Emperor. If Yin Dai could testify against him, the Radiance sect would definitely attack the Sea race. At that time, even if he ran away, the Imperial Mermaids and Mermaids clan would have to take the blame for him. The sea region was only so big, and there were only so many resources. Everywhere was full of competition. The sea region had never been peaceful. The upper 3 races were always fighting more intensely than the lower 5 races. The Imperial Mermaid clan was currently ranked second among the top 3 clans, closely followed by the Imperial Skate clan. The Imperial Mermaids and Mermaids had to take full responsibility for the Radiance sect's actions. The Imperial Skate clan might use this as an excuse to attack the Imperial Mermaids and Mermaids during the God of the Sea Assembly. He wanted to pull the Imperial Mermaids and Mermaids from the 2nd place to the 3rd place, so that the Imperial Mermaids and Mermaids could take the 2nd place. The ranking of the 8 clans of the Ocean Empire was directly related to the distribution of the ocean's resources. If so, he would become a sinner of the Imperial Mermaids and Mermaids clan. As the younger sister of the leader of the Imperial Mermaids and Mermaids clan, she was the eldest princess of the Imperial Mermaids and Mermaids clan. Shark Mang was truly afraid that he would turn from a respected being of the Imperial Mermaids and Merman clan into a rat on the street. In addition, the sacred source life form, the scarlet tentacle algae, had already been built. The scarlet tentacle algae would need some time to build the scarlet tentacle algae, and it would also take time to retrieve it. If he ran away, the scarlet tentacle algae was destined to be abandoned here. Be it phase or spirit chi professionals, sacred source life forms were the most precious existences. Shark Mang was unwilling to leave its sacred source life form, the scarlet tentacle algae, here. Shark Mang revealed a crazed expression as it felt the pressure. Shark Mang immediately used its strongest killing move. A dark red color condensed in Shark Mang's mouth, and it spat out a dark red giant shark. The giant shark carried the Blood Sea's aura and braved the wind and waves as it slammed toward Bai Yan. Looking at the blood-red giant shark ray, which was spitting at him, Bai Yan shouted, "I've been waiting for you to make the first move." Bai Yan didn't try to dodge. He stood in place as the blood-red shark approached. Bai Yan extended his hand towards the giant red shark ray that was shooting towards him, and directly stuffed the entire giant red shark ray into his mouth. The moment he swallowed the giant shark, Bai Yan's body exuded a layer of blood mist. Slowly, blood flowed out of Bai Yan's orifices. It was obvious that Bai Yan had suffered serious injuries in order to swallow Shark Mang's attack. Under Shark Mang's flabbergasted gaze, Bai Yan suddenly opened his mouth. A red and white beam of light shot out from Bai Yan's mouth and blasted at Shark Mang. No matter how Shark Mang dodged, the beam of light landed firmly on Shark Mang's body as though it had a navigation system. Bai Yan's sacred source body's ability was repeat. In order to unleash the power of repeat, he had to swallow the opponent's attack. Only then could he fuse his attack with the opponent's attack and return it to the opponent. With the opponent's attack as a guide, Bai Yan's attack had a navigation ability for a short period of time. Under normal circumstances, Bai Yan would not easily swallow an opponent's attack like Shark Mang, which was about the same strength as him. It would be easy for him to be injured. However, since Lin Yuan had ordered for a quick battle, Bai Yan could not care so much anymore. Shark Mang, which was hit by Bai Yan's attack, spat out blood and fell to the ground. At this moment, Shark Mang was seriously injured, but he did not die. As a peak immortal ocean emperor, Shark Mang would not die so easily. The instant Shark Mang fell to the island, Bai Yan had already flashed to Shark Mang's side. As an apostle, surviving in the dangerous swamp world had always been a matter of life and death. Therefore, when facing enemies, Bai Yan had never cared about martial ethics. Bai Yan had always adhered to the principle of being heavy-handed if he could, and not leaving anyone alive if he could kill. The totem behind Bai Yan, who had come to Shark Mang's side, rotated, and the huge crocodile inside the totem suddenly shot out more than 20 holy light beams. These 20 holy light beams hit the important joints of the mermaid's body, directly shattering all of them. If Shark Mang had suffered an attack from Bai Yan's sacred art, it could still resist. Now that Shark Mang's joints had been destroyed and it could not move, it had completely become an animal waiting to be slaughtered by Bai Yan. Bai Yan immediately reached out and grabbed Shark Mang, who had collapsed on the ground, and fiercely pinched Shark Mang's skull. Feeling the impending death, Shark Mang could no longer hold it in and shouted with all the strength in its body, "You can't kill me. I'm the biological sister of the Imperial Mermaid Clan's clan leader, the Imperial Mermaid Clan's Princess Royal. Does the Radiance Clan want to start a war with the Sea Clan?" ABC, you're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.